Welcome, Overcasters. It's your host with the most, Jay here, and welcome back to the Overcast. That time we woke up in a podcast and had to explain manga. Our heated adventures overanalyzing manga we find interesting. On this week's episode, we read another installment of My Hero Academia by Kohei Horikoshi, chapters 70 to 97.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Over Manga Cast. My name is Sam, and as always here at the top of the episode we like to talk about what our familiarity with the franchise that we read this week is. Actually, I have a specific thing for this particular instance of Hero Aka. Normally in these revisit episodes I just say go listen to the last thing we did, but for this was actually, and I'm pretty sure this is the same for Jake, it's the last full arc of the anime that I had watched. I had gotten a little bit into the season after it, and while I did enjoy it, circumstances in my life basically stopped me from continuing to watch it at the time. So I am glad to have revisited this particular arc because I have very fond memories of it, and I'm glad the manga was just as good as I remember the anime being. Jacob, can you confirm?
Can confirm. It's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I've been trying to do better at, like, keeping up with the, stuff I'd say I'd continue reading, and I'm chipping away at the list. This was the last full arc that I watched, and one thing that I had started doing with, like around this time, I decided to wait for arcs to get finished, and then it just, it just slips your mind, and, you move on to whatever the, shiny, distracting thing is, and I just haven't gotten back around to Hero Aka. I was listening to some of the Hero Aka soundtrack, and I'm like, how many OPs does the show have now? Oh god, I'm so far behind. But yes, I had actually seen all of this in animated form prior to this reading section.
Oh, and before any of y'all say anything else, Odd Future is a fucking banger. I will hear no arguments at this time. Matt, your experience with this particular section of Hero Aka.
Well, let's get this started. I am a known fan of My Hero Academia, if you've listened to our previous things. I have read the amount we've needed to for this podcast. I am aware other things have happened. Yeah, this is new for me.
All right, and Jay.
So if you've listened to our previous episodes, I have repeatedly promised to continue the anime and or start the anime. I unfortunately have broken some of those promises. So this is a fresh read for me.
You're in good company as far as that goes.
Indeed. So, as a quick refresher, the last time we had left our young heroes, or heroes to be, Midoriya had been confronted with creepy bad touch man Shigaraki. We pick up in the aftermath of that event where Midoriya is being interviewed by the police and basically being reassured, don't worry, we've got people on it. Just go enjoy your summer break, which isn't a break at all. You're going to training camp.
We also get a bit that ends up following through this particular section of our reading where we start to get concerns from Deku's mom about the life path that he's chosen.
God, I feel so bad for Mrs. Midoriya.
So does Horikoshi. He said so himself.
She does not deserve the son she has. Like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm gonna call you when you're in the hospital. Oh, you're gonna leave me on voicemail and get back to me later. Okay, good job.
Bless his heart, Deku tries, but...
By trying, you mean applying the absolute minimum effort of trying?
Yeah.
Definition of trying.
He's got a very specific set of priorities, and I'm not saying they are correctly aligned. I'm just saying he sticks to them very closely.
He's at peak stupid teenager at this point, and
I
that
do
can be
appreciate
frustrating.
Yeah.
God, Mom, I'm 14. I can live my own life.
I'm just like, I expected this to, definitely the first part of our reading expected this type of behavior. But after the first and second beatdowns, and you kind of have to gauge that maybe his mother's concern and outrage might be, warranted.
Valid.
Especially because the mom is not aware, like, 90% of Deku's wounds are self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Well,
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. We have a discussion question, and I'll have a lot to say about this particular aspect of Deku's character once we get there.
Indeed. The kids in the hero course are going off to an isolated training camp because, hey, the villains are still being villains. How about we just alter the destination and not tell anybody? This will surely keep us safe and protected.
It was either Sarah or Kaminari who was the one who mentioned, but I already told my mom where we were originally going. Yes, genius. That's why they're changing the destination. That's how it works. Notably, both of those characters failed. I don't remember which of them made the stupid comment, but it could have been either of them.
Yeah, but they arrive in the mountains where they pull off onto the side and are told by a group of heroes, or at least two members of this hero group, the Wild Wild Pussycats, who I love them. They are great.
They're pretty spectacular.
How upset they get when Deku tells, like, the rest of the class how long ago they were professional heroes.
And one of them is very concerned about her age, yeah.
They've been professional heroes for 12 years now. We are 18 at heart. I feel bad because I don't remember that character's name off the top of my head because I like Mandalay a lot more.
It's either Pixie Bob or Ragdoll.
It's Pixie Bob.
It's
Pixie Bob.
It's Pixie Bob.
That's it. Yeah. Pixie Bob is the one who's concerned about their apparent ages. I like Mandalay a lot more.
I'm glad you remembered the fourth one's name, because I know Pixie Bob.
Ragdoll is very distinct.
And Tiger.
It's Pixie Bob.
Tiger's very distinct.
Yeah, Tiger's very distinct. We'll get to Tiger.
We will get to
I love Tiger.
Yes.
But yeah, Pixie Bob, Mandalay, Ragdoll, and Tiger. Mandalay is actually the one I tend to forget, but...
I did forget.
But they're like, all right, kids, you're going to be staying at our secluded training camp for this special summer training course. And we're just meeting up with you here now before you make your way there. Okay, so we're going to get back on the bus, right? No, you're not. By the way, lunch is in 3 hours. Have fun in the woods. Boom. And yeet them off a cliff.
They're launched into the sky.
Because Pixie Bob's quirk is she's an earthbender.
Not too uncommon from any camp experiences I've had. Food is done at this time. Go do stuff.
Have fun in the woods. Hope you make it.
Jay, do you want to make a complaint against the Girl Scouts of America?
No, I enjoyed it thoroughly.
They're not supposed to attack you with landslides.
I don't know what they teach you in Boy Scouts, but it sounds like you needed to have a more rigorous curriculum.
This explains so much.
Look, the only thing I remember from the Boy Scouts is the Pinewood Derby, because my dad and I looked up guides on the internet and we out-teched everybody.
You were the people everyone hated, Sam.
Yes. And your scorn fuels me.
Yes.
No, I've just succeeded at other things since then.
Our heroes launch into action, but alas, they do not make it to camp in time for lunch. In fact, they barely make it in time for dinner, as everyone staggers in, dirty, suffering the side effects of their quirks, and exhausted.
Can we talk about that they had to fight a earth monster in the forest?
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't just that they had to make the trek there. The earthbender of the Wild Wild Pussycats was sending monsters at them.
I just want to... Her quirk is she can control Earth and also make sentient creatures out of Earth.
Sure.
Okay.
She's a pro hero. I don't question what they can do at this point.
We have spent a lot of time in these episodes talking about how quirks are very liberal with what they allow you to do. So fine. If someone can have an internal combustion engine in their legs...
I was just gonna say, if you're gonna complain about quirks, then you're pretty much done at Ida. So.
Hey, I have complained about every quirk fairly. There is no special treatment here.
You're not wrong. I'm just saying it's a losing battle.
So what do you think of Kota's quirk, Ball Bust?
Yeah, we're introduced to the nephew of one of the Wild Wild Pussycats.
Kota, a small boy with a spiky hat.
his immediate reaction to Deku saying hello and offering a handshake is to punch him in the balls, just full force.
It's a very dynamic panel.
Also, I know this is kind of ruining a discussion question for later, but Kota's my favorite character.
I wonder why.
You're in good company with Bakugo, who sees this and goes, "Cute kid."
I hate children.
I just love how Bakugo is so, like, he sees Deku get punched in the nuts and he's like, that kid's good. He's good people.
That's good people.
I love the underlying hatred for Deku that fuels Bakugo through everything he does.
We'll get to the other moment of that in this reading.
Yeah, we will. I love that part.
It's objectively one of my favorite parts, but it's also the one where I feel the most sorry for Deku. Anyway, time for dinner. Everyone enjoys their food, which is all the sweeter for having starved throughout the entire afternoon in the forest. Various hijinks ensue from there. There's a bit of
Mineta existing.
Mineta being Mineta.
Yep.
What Mineta did in this section is tried to scale the wall between the...
I'm telling you, it's just too much. Disperse it a little bit.
In the manga, it's barely anything is the problem. Like, this is just a trope that they then... Yeah. Nothing happens. He gets knocked off the wall and is then unconscious.
I can't complain about Mineta in this section. It's just my patience for him is inherently low.
I'm just saying anything about Mineta's behavior in this entire, like, section we read is purely holdovers from what he's done before. Like, he is...
I just think it's rather poignant that Kota was placed as a guard in between the two walls to prevent this very thing from happening. So
why do they think Kota will prevent anything from happening? He's a little kid.
But
he succeeds.
He succeeds, and they know from the attack upon Miss Midoriya's grandchildren that he is not fond of heroes. So Kota does pop out from between the two wooden boards to block Mineta, who falls. The girls thank him. He turns around. Of course, we get a shot of the girls in the bath. Kota falls over from shock. And poignantly, Deku saves Kota from falling, but not Mineta.
I'd have saved Mineta. He got a face full of Mineta's butt. It was real funny.
Yep. That's one of those ones where it's like there was an element of saving Mineta, but you wonder how much of that was more just of a pratfall. This does actually lead to something valuable because
what's Invisible Girl's name? Hakakure?
Yeah.
Yes, because she has the most hilarious official merchandise. Her figurine. I paid $60 for a pair of gloves.
I do love that in the shot of the girls in the bath. Hakakure is just a hole in the water. In the shape of a human torso.
This does actually lead to something fairly important because we learn a little bit about Kota's history and his family. A really good moment from Deku that sort of shows both a lot of his strengths as a character and one of his biggest weaknesses as a character, because I believe it's Mandalay who mentions, because I believe Kota is her nephew specifically. Yeah. She explains that his parents died, and she gives very few details about this incident because obviously it's not really any of Deku's business, the specifics, but Deku is almost immediately able to figure out exactly who it was and what had happened.
Because he's the hero otaku.
Yeah, and it's like that shows, Deku's knowledge and his ability to figure things out, but also it's kind of a good thing that Kota was unconscious at this point because that's really insensitive, Deku.
Yeah.
Not the only time he will do that in this section to Kota specifically.
Kota's parents were the combined husband-wife hero team Water Hose. Yeah, we don't really see much of it, just a flashback of some blood splatter on a street, but it is fairly brutal from the look of it and the sobriety of Deku's expression. But that does not get in the way of training, and it is time to pump those quirks up. We are leveling up in this RPG.
Man, I really like training arcs.
And
then we got to the training part of this arc, and I was just like, oh, okay.
There is not much to it, yeah.
We use our quirks as hard as possible. and we don't even get to see everyone. Like, the next 2 chapters bonus page as I'm explaining what their training was, and you could tell some of them are just like, so what are they gaining from this summer vacation here? Like, who's Talk to Animals boy?
Kota.
Kota? Yeah. His training is revealed that he screamed to get a louder voice, and I'm like, does that work?
I don't presume to know how quirks work.
That's the problem, though. It's not his quirk.
It's not his quirk. Yeah, it's just he's...
Like, some of these people just have regular muscle training, and it's like, at this point, I'm reading these going like, I don't think Horikoshi knows how you work out. This is all terrible.
See, my favorite is Bakugo dunking his forearms in boiling water to expand his sweat glands so he can produce more of the glycerin sweat.
It's sort of funny because it's like, this actually, unless I actually get off my butt and start watching Hero Aka again, this is the last time I can really make a big comparison between the anime adaptation, but they do a lot more in the anime. Like, for example...
They incorporate the stuff in that little bonus at the end.
Yeah, you actually see that, and there are things like actually seeing like Todoroki freeze the barrel of water he's in solid and then immediately melt it to near boiling point over and over again does such a better job of conveying what he's actually doing than the pretty much nothing that we get instead.
No, I believe the 3 main characters get workout routines that make sense. Everyone else, I don't know what they're doing there. Like,
Tokoyami's just in a cave.
Yeah, Tokoyami makes sense, at least. Like, that's a mental training. But some of them just, like, it's clear Horikoshi and his team couldn't come up with an idea.
The lead up to this is actually pretty good because Aizawa goes up to Bakugo and says, here, this is identical to the ball you threw at the beginning during the quirk test on your first day here. Throw it as hard as you can and see how much the improvement is like 2 meters.
Yeah.
And everyone's shocked at this at first. And Aizawa was like, no, that makes perfect sense. You have made a lot of improvements in your hero training, but it's all been specifically your, like, you know, physical reflexes, your combat abilities, your rescuing abilities, your intellect, but you haven't actually trained the quirks themselves. That's what we're going to focus on. We're going to make the quirks themselves more powerful. But like, there is the case where it's like, what do you do to make Kota's quirks strong? Like how do you make Hagakure more invisible?
I was literally just about to say, what did she even do?
She's literally already invisible all of the time.
Well, actually, that's the best part, because it's like some of the characters who were threatened to miss the training camp are some of the people who would most likely actually need or would actually benefit from a quirk improving training camp.
Yeah, the people doing remedial lessons rather than training. Oh.
Well, no, they're doing remedial lessons and training, which Mina has trouble. She's got problems with, as they are getting. After several days of this training, the group of kids are ready to do a test of courage by wandering through the dark and spooky forest. And Mina is like, yes, we're going to do the test of courage. This is going to be so cool. And Aizawa walks up and says, all right, everyone who failed and is doing remedial training, you're coming with me. We're doing math. What?
She's a great reaction panel.
I just want to know whose idea it was to do the test of courage. Because that person was an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're currently hiding from a bunch of villains. Let's separate all the people into individual teams so they can be picked off one by one in case something bad happened.
We're gonna walk into a dark and spooky forest at night by ourselves.
Yeah, like, I don't know. The rest of our reading does make it a case that the UA Academy definitely is not super well organized, although they kind of do fight back that that's mostly just bad press. But like, this whole day in its entirety kind of just shows me like, you know, maybe people weren't wrong. Like, oh
yeah, no, I think that's very intentional. UA, and like, you know, as much as a lot of the people at UA, like especially in the press conferences, of course they're gonna say that, you know, it's not as bad as it looks. But like a lot of the actual staff members of UA themselves are like, yeah, we let this happen. That was pretty inexcusable. What the hell are we gonna do now? And like, this is actually a really good section that shows that, you know, whilst it very rarely comes out and outright says it out loud, the pillars of Hero Society are not really that well constructed, and they crumble very fast with the slightest stupid decision, like sending a bunch of the students alone into the forest in the middle of the night. You know, it gets out of control really quickly.
This is also kind of a decent reminder that the peaceful state of Hero Society that we are introduced to in the opening of this manga is actually not the norm. This isn't what it's been since quirks were discovered, because All Might is the latest wielder of One for All. He's the one that actually created the peaceful world our heroes grew up in.
Yep. He is the pillar of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
so it's been a generation of this. Of course, no one knows how to actually have this be an institution going forward.
Look, all I can say is that a generation ago, there might have been slightly more crime, but the heroes were heroes. And they weren't restricted by these laws that forced them to wear clothes. Like,
all I can think of just running around naked just because why not? I'm pretty sure there were laws and restrictions on public nudity.
Yeah, apparently heroes then have additional restrictions is the thing. Like it's
there's a side bit of
Midnight
and Mount Lady, and then it ends with
I'm not gonna lie, I gotta skip that.
I actually did chuckle at this Mineta joke where he's enjoying the cat fight on TV. That actually did make me chuckle.
Thank you, God.
Midnight is proud that she is the one that got the law passed about the amount of skin coverage your superhero suit must have.
But anyway, it is the dark of night. Our heroes are isolated into small groups. It is now time for the attack of the villains, the Vanguard Action Squad.
In the dark of the night, evil will find them.
A seer warns of a deadly fate. Something Sonic Underground.
What?
I don't know.
I think we're referencing two separate songs.
I think we are. Anyway, the point is that Deku gets one of the best fights in the entire fucking manga up to this point.
Yeah. Because everyone is separated, because that was such a brilliant decision. Deku realizes
himself.
Well, the big thing that Deku realizes is because I mentioned that there was another case where Deku was kind of more insensitive than he should have been and probably should have known better. And that particular moment is he finds Kota on his own during one of like the training camp days, dinner times, and he tries his best. I get strong Tanjiro vibes of, let me just pep talk you into happiness. That'll work, right?
Yeah, he follows Kota up to a cave-side cliff out in the woods that Kota has claimed as his secret base. And he's like, hey, so you kind of didn't show up to dinner. Here's some curry. Why are you following me? Well, I mean, I did hear about your parents. They were water hosts, right? Who told you? Did Mandalay tell you that? I just think they were really impressive as heroes. And this is why I hate heroes. Okay, get out of here.
I can tell you're real stressed about this. I think I'm just gonna keep pushing the issue. Deku, stop.
Bless him, he tries, but
yeah, it's very similar to the situation in a Demon Slayer episode that we did, where the whole Tanjiro taking the coin away. It's like that approach doesn't help, like, and I appreciate it when you have a main character, especially if a main character of a like a Shonen Jump series in particular, that can just screw up and the story doesn't like belabor the point or point it out. It's like that's just a failing on Deku's part. He needs to do better than that.
We'll appreciate Hiroaka makes it much more clear that Deku has not succeeded, where even we kind of went away from the Demon Slayer one going like, I'm not 100% sure the story disagrees with Tanjiro's actions, but let's go with it.
I think it's not to get all philosophical, but I think it might also have to do with the societal impact of, mental health in general, because,
That is true.
They approach it very light and nonchalantly, and like perhaps, from the outside perspective, we're focusing too heavily on it and applying that to it, where it's just like, no, this is supposed to be like, you need to stop thinking so hard about this, and obviously that doesn't work. But
what's the matter, orphan? Sad your parents died? Deku, what the hell?
It's a bit on the blunt side, but the important in a plot progression sense thing about this is that Deku knows where Kota would be hiding on a night like this when villains are about. And so he runs off to the secret base on the mountainside, which is a good thing because, as the whims of fate would have it, the villain that murdered Kota's parents is there and looking for more blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A coincidence is like the bread and butter of My Hero at this point. Like,
yeah.
I normally don't have a problem with that sort of thing, but it's so blunt in that it happens to be the same villain that killed Waterhose.
It's the same guy.
The big thing is he gets like a weird realization halfway through. It's just like, what? And it's like, you're the person who killed his parents. Oh, really? That wraps up my character arc right now. Cool. I'm going to switch to my kill everything eye. Like, okay.
Yeah, it was weird that he just randomly mentioned this. I'm like, do you not know how to read the room?
Well, obviously not. Obviously not. That's why he's a sociopath with a long history of violence.
It's like announcing someone has a
I mean, you're not wrong.
Muscular.
No, I'm talking about muscular.
I'm just saying, it's like announcing you have a peanut allergy. Oh, well then let me take out these peanut squares that I brought along with me because
you monster.
But yeah, I mean, I will say I love the Deku versus Muscular battle for a lot of reasons, but the least of which of all is Muscular himself, because
very one-dimensional.
I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's as close to lazy as Hiroaka gets.
Yeah, but I mean, they need filler heroes.
Or
because if
filler villains in this case.
Yes, filler
Tons
villains.
Of filler heroes.
Because if everyone was just super interested and super, had a lot of depth and intrigue to them.
I think if I were to articulate the issue, Hiroaka is usually better about hiding that fact because, strictly speaking, almost all of Class 1A is in that category, but it disguises that better than they did with Muscular, and that's my problem with him. It's so transparent the kind of rote cardboard cutout antagonist he is, whereas everything else is exactly up to the standard of Hiroaka I'd come to expect up to this point. So that's sort of the reason why he kind of stands out to me as a bit of a thin villain.
Yeah, and like the setup for this fight is literally like Deku finds Kota. He's got Muscular right there. And Muscular then starts villain monologuing about like, hey, we came here to fight them, and also I've got a power where I just make more muscles. So I'm actually infinitely strong. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Also, I killed that kid's parents. Oh, that's the kid whose parents I killed? Cool. They gave me this glass eye. That's why it looks weird, I guess. I'm gonna put in a new murder glass eye, because Deku's not super strong enough to fight me now, despite the fact he broke one of his arms punching me.
Overall, I love this confrontation. I will say that Muscular himself is the weakest part of it. I think that Deku's determination is the part that I love the most, because he is getting kicked around, quite literally in a few panels, as Muscular's whole quirk is he just gets stronger to the point where his muscles literally bulge out of his skin it's grotesque.
Like those images of like old school bodybuilders that are just a bit too much like
old
that.
School
but
or
like
new school?
Old
school bodybuilders look like human beings is the difference.
Not all of them. Like when they were super competitive without any regs. My god.
Or the Chad memes.
Yeah.
You know the ones.
Yeah.
But
it's too much.
But I mean,
he is way more powerful than Deku is capable of handling with full cowling. Even with a 100% punch, he is like, that kind of stung. Good thing I beefed up my entire left arm with 1,000% more muscle to absorb the blow.
Which is a common tactic for fighting one for all users, apparently.
The thing I like for this is because both this fight and what comes immediately after, I should say should be, and I trust that Hiroaka is going to follow through on this. But the big thing is that this is meant to be a sea change for Deku, because during the first portion of this fight where basically trying to get an opening to run away with Kota, he's been treating One for All the way that he's been treating it constantly up to this point, as him borrowing All Might's power. And it gets to a certain point in the fight where he's kind of resigned to his fate. There's a really powerful moment where he's basically, it doesn't exactly say why, but it's pretty obvious from the context. He apologizes to his mother in his head because he's kind of accepted what's about to happen.
He is convinced he's about to die as he's being pressed down by Muscular, ground into the stones, as he's screaming at Kota to just run while I hold him off.
Yep. Deku's gonna die fighting a villain on an oil derrick, just like his father before him. That's my headcanon, and I refuse to hear any different.
You might not be wrong, is the thing.
But it's actually a fairly convincing... of course we know that Deku's gonna survive, because literally the narrator is Deku
from the future, yeah.
So, but it's a pretty convincing fake out, because it is so very different from the headspace that Deku is in normally during every other fight. He has no hope. He has no backup plan. He's
not trying to think about a way to get out of the situation, which is the way Deku always thinks about things. He's always trying to come up with some plan to leverage what he can do against an opponent who outclasses him. At this point, he's basically let that go and is just, I'm going to stand here for as long as I can, and that's all I've got. But the sort of big thing is, this is one of the first times, and, to a large extent, Full Cowling kind of has shades of this, but this is a more direct expression of it. He stops thinking about One for All as being All Might's power, and almost stops thinking about One for All at all. He just acts under his own abilities. He accepts his own, what his own 100% is, and pushes beyond that. It's not about being like All Might anymore. It's, what spurs this on is that, despite all of Deku's telling Kota to run, Kota instead, best he does is distracts Muscular, but he uses his quirk on Muscular.
In his own way, he stands there defiantly. As Deku's being ground into the dirt, Kota splashes him with a bit of water from his own quirk, which distracts Muscular. And also, Deku sees this flash of heroism in the person he's trying to save, and that inspires him to stand up, as if I would let you kill him. And in the moment that blew my freaking mind in the anime, Jake was there when I first saw it. He saw me leap out of my chair and hype.
And, something that I didn't actually notice at the time when I first watched it, but did when I was, reading closely and analyzing for, the sake of the podcast and analysis and whatnot, there's some really strong parallels to what earned One for All for Deku. Mm-hmm. You have someone who really should just leave. Kota could have just left and he would have survived in that circumstance. Because it's not like Muscular was out to kill him in particular. And if he had run off into the woods, Muscular wouldn't have bothered searching for him, because he's crazy. He's going to violently attack anyone he can find. He's not going to search for somebody. But he goes in and he tries to help, even though what he does is basically useless. But in doing that, in doing something, reflexive, genuinely heroic, it spurs on someone who didn't realize they were powerful enough to do what they had to do. It's a really subtle and clever parallel to the
moment where Deku just runs at the slime villain, yeah. And summoning up 1,000,000%, which Horikoshi does note later is not actually 1,000,000%. It's just Deku hyping himself up.
I'm sad he had to point that out.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have subtlety in anything anymore, I guess.
But with 1,000,000...
Subtlety, that's metaphor.
Well, either or.
Subtlety would be like 101%.
Anyway, with 1,000,000% one for all, he breaks out of the grapple and then punches Muscular straight into next week, or at least 7 hours into the future when he is captured by the police.
I assumed he'd been murdered at that point.
He looks pretty dead, but he's not.
This arc does a lot of murdering that then they say isn't murdering after the fact.
Yeah, they really want to convince you that gas is instant death when it is very much not.
I mean, the kid's name is Mustard.
Yeah.
I don't think that's his actual name.
Well, that's his villain name.
His villain name, yeah.
Anyway, Deku has won the fight in spectacular manner, but now his arms are mega fucked up worse than they've ever been.
He's got both his arms broken now.
Again.
He's got both of his arms basically powdered.
Or Shoji.
He's like, good thing I saved my legs. All right, kid, piggyback, let's go.
Yeah, they liken it to like firecrackers going off normally, his bones. And this time it was the equivalent of being pulverized into nothingness. But the major concern was ligaments, not so much the bone and muscle in particular.
Like, bombs went off in his arms.
I can't imagine how hard it is to give someone a piggyback while you have broken arms. Like, because if you're not supporting them, all of their weight is around your neck.
Yeah, that's also full cowling, I guess.
I guess he's got All Might's thick neck. I don't know.
Full cowling around his neck to make his neck superhumanly strong.
I don't care at this point.
Yeah, that's the Colorado Smash. The high elevation gives you powerful freaking neck muscles, I guess, from having to breathe so hard.
During the fight with Muscular, Muscular was the one who mentioned Vanguard Action Squad's target was, right?
Yeah, Muscular mentions to Deku, or he says, where's the kid named Bakugo at? And so Deku's like, they're after Kachan. Oh, I have to mention that they're after Kachan. Yeah, and I gotta say, I do love this moment because through a series of events, Deku does end up near Mandalay and says, use your telepathy to tell everyone that Aizawa-sensei said it's okay to fight. That's important. Also, they're after Kachan.
And then Deku starts running off immediately afterward, and it's like, wait, I don't know who Kachan is.
He's so hyped up on adrenaline, he forgot that he was just using a nickname.
Thankfully, other people were able to put two and two together because he frequently refers to Bakugo as Kachan.
Basically, everyone in Class 1A is like, oh, they're after Bakugo. Oh, that's not good. Deku does drop off Kota to Aizawa-sensei at one point, and Aizawa's like, what happened to your arms? Oh, you did it again, didn't you? Yeah, sorry, okay, gotta go. Running now, bye! Okay, your adrenaline is going to peter out at any moment, and you're going to collapse. And look, just find
already gone.
Just find Mandalay and and tell her that I said it's okay to fight. Poor Aizawa. I feel so bad for him in this part.
Aizawa gets a lot of crap this section. He really does. But
poor man.
Yeah, it's very specifically because they're technically on public ground. There's also a little bit of cases where the manga explains a little bit more deeply about how quirk laws work, like between chapter, like side, give a bit more details. And because they're technically on public ground, they're not really allowed to use their quirks on someone. But Aizawa is saying, I will accept any flack for this. Defend yourself.
Yeah, because normally if you use your quirk without explicit written authority, the Gestapo quirk police, I guess, are going to come and arrest you for being a danger to humanity. Like if you're using your telekinesis to shop, suddenly secret police are going to whisk you away to an underground Riker cell.
I mean, these restrictions are kind of like reasonable given the fact that a lot of these quirks are either have limited control and these are children.
Hopefully you've done the reading, dear listener, but for any of you who haven't, Matt is being sarcastic. The manga actually specifically points out that one, no one would care if you were to do that. It's just the way
Dear
that
listener, if me going on a rant about the Gestapo Quirk Police wasn't a sign I was being sarcastic, I think the problem's with you, not me.
You're not wrong about that, Matt, but I feel like being careful.
I mean, this is being distributed via the internet.
Yeah, that's sort of my thought
we
process.
know it lives on the internet.
But yeah, no, point being, the manga, actually, this is one of the rare cases where the manga goes into a bit more detail than the anime does, because normally the anime, clarified stuff that the manga set up. Basically, what they did was that they created a lot of, broad interpretation laws. Like, strictly speaking, you're not allowed to use your quirk in public. That's just a general rule. But if you have something like Midoriya's mom has a telekinesis quirk, and if she dropped her phone and used her quirk to pick it up, nobody would bat an eye at that, even though it's technically illegal. But in this case, there is the situation where it's like these people are like, if you were to use your quirk on somebody else, that is strictly speaking
for obvious reasons. I think, like, obviously you don't want to use any quirks that could potentially be an offensive, not offensive.
Yeah.
Probably, but offensive to another person.
I also assume it completely isn't even regarding, physical quirks. Like, I think Tail Dude's tail,
he's like, it's part of my body.
I think if he hit someone with that, he'd just get charged with assault, not you used your quirk illegally for attacking with your tail.
Be careful with your limbs, guys.
To sort of summarize this whole situation, I think the important thing is that this actually kind of reinforces stuff that we had sort of surmised previously, where the change happened so quickly that a lot of the laws still haven't quite caught up yet, because it's mostly throw out a broad stroke thing and we'll figure it out later. And then
how many generations has it been? Did we ever get a hard, fast generational thing?
I don't think we got a hard and fast generational thing, but I think the other thing that's sort of important is, the thing I was about to go into is government is as government does. If there's any one thing a government, generally speaking, isn't, it's fast. So
by design.
Yeah, and that is sometimes a good thing, and in other cases it means that Mrs. Midoriya picking up her phone on the street is technically a crime.
I'm just saying, if they just took the person with the strongest quirks and made him king of all the world, we could have a monarchy, and monarchies are known for being the fastest of governments.
Technically, the words that you said are technically correct. I don't think I agree with them, but you're not entirely wrong.
Sometimes you're free to be wrong, Jacob.
I mean, objectively, they are fast.
They are the most efficient.
My word goes. You figure it out, but do it now.
But yeah, anyway.
What did I come back to?
Nothing, Sam.
Don't worry about it, Sam. We're solving hero problems.
Anyway, where were we? Oh, right. The farms.
Yeah, Mrs. Midoriya is gonna have to.
She's gonna have to file a complaint.
Yeah. My son went away for summer vacation and came back with broken arms.
My son went away for 3 days and came away with a possibly lifelong debilitation.
The important bit is Kota has been rescued at this point, and Deku has relayed to Mandalay the 2 messages to everybody. Defend yourselves, however, you don't worry about the rules. Aizawa-sensei is taking responsibility for everything that's going to happen, which is kind of his thing in this section, poor Aizawa. And
he really is the scapegoat.
And they are specifically after Bakugo. We get a number of other smaller confrontations. We finally get a little bit of a light shown on some of the Class 1B students like Tetsu and Kendo.
I love this entire encounter.
I want to apologize to all the Class 1B. I did not recognize any of them in street clothes.
But Tetsu and Kendo are making their way through the gas created by Mustard, one of the members of the Vanguard Action Squad.
I love Mustard so much.
He's pretty hilarious.
I forgot what Mustard's primary method of attack was, but when that happened, I'm like, oh, Matt's gonna like this character.
My favorite thing in any superhero medium is when people don't discount how powerful a regular gun is. Like,
Yep.
It's like, man, cool, you can throw a fireball? Anyone can shoot a bullet. If that is stronger, you don't have a superpower.
And I'm not gonna lie, I really like this moment because it actually does a good job of showing how powerful just a regular gun is, but also, you know, it doesn't play that as a joke. It actually just shows that, like, maybe the value system of this society is skewed because
like, honestly, if Kendo had gone in first, she'd be dead. Because Mustard just immediately went for the headshot. It's only the fact that Tetsu went in first and was in his steel form that he survived getting shot in the head.
It does a good job of, like, not, like, going too far in the other direction and trivializing superpowers, but, you know, you can just shoot someone. That's an option. The big thing from this is you get a fight between them and Mustard is sort of pulling the standard villain thing of monologuing at them while he thinks he's winning. They manage to outsmart him.
Mainly because Kendo got big hands.
Yeah, Kendo blows away the gas that he was using to sense their positions, and that allowed them to, since it's 2-on-1, he couldn't, you know, deal with them coming in both directions.
He couldn't shoot both of them at once.
The one flaw of a gun. You need two guns.
Or something that isn't a semi-automatic, because he had a revolver.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
The point of the villain's plan is that they were going to use a combination of two of their members, Dabi, who I believe we saw a brief scene of earlier. Like, I think he actually is one of the first ones to show up, but then it cuts to Deku versus Muscular, who has a fire-based quirk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dabi has the weird patchwork face where he's got, like...
It looks like he has dead flesh sewed onto his face.
I think it's quite becoming. Very distinguished.
And as I was about to say, he's got that weird patchwork face that some people find attractive. I'm not discrediting you, Jay. I definitely cannot throw stones. I live in a glass house, but... It's not my style.
I would definitely be able to pick him out in a crowd.
That is true.
That is one definition of the word distinguished, I guess.
But yes, Dabi does attack the main building where the remedial lessons are happening. But shock, surprise, it's not actually him. It is a doppelganger made out of clay.
By one of
flesh, isn't it?
I think it's
goop.
It is goop.
The key to that is that between Dabi's firepower and Mustard's gas created like a sort of semicircle barrier to try to keep the heroes and the students in a specific area, and that would also cover the retreat of the villains after they had succeeded in their mission.
So I guess this is a good enough time to bring this up as any other. Did the map they have help any of you people out? I didn't really get much of a spatial awareness from it.
Honestly,
I did not internalize the map. It was just, I guess, a little tidbit that kind of went in one ear and out the other. But yeah, I didn't really focus on it that much.
Yeah, I was never really sure where any fight was taking place in regards to others. But
I guess I had just kind of internalized them all as being like separate encounters, and I just lived with that reality.
I could tell who was moving toward what fight. Like, I don't know that. And I mean, like, it is supposed to be like kind of confusing in a fog of war sense, but like I could parse out, you know, who was going where.
Yes, but the reason that the Dabi that attacked the building was a doppelganger was because of my favorite character in the Vanguard Action Squad, Twice.
I had forgotten about Twice. There were a couple of cases where I read some of his panels and They don't explain what his gimmick is at this point, and I had actually forgotten what it was, so I got a little bit confused a few times.
I love Twice. The thing is, he will, like, his text panels are split kind of in half between him reacting to what's being said and then saying the exact opposite. Like, he will get attacked by a fire attack and say, that's bitter cold, and then get hit by an ice attack and say, ow, 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 it's so hot.
The one that confused me the most until I remembered who Twice was, where it's like, I know you. Who are they again?
I recognize those faces. Who are they?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Well, Dobby, you put up a real fight against that pro hero. You're just fodder. Why are we sending in fodder to die?
The other important thing with Dobby's fight is that by the time Aizawa was able to get back with Kota to drop Kota off, he mentions to Vlad, the homeroom teacher for Class B.
Yes, Big Daddy Dracula.
What they're sending here is a distraction, because I beat that guy, and when he attacked before, he did the exact same thing. This is a distraction. They're after the students. You being alone here is more than enough to keep the students safe. I have to go back out there, and it's around this time that Mustard gets taken down, so the Vanguard Action Squad realizes that they are also running increasingly short on time.
Did we talk about Spinner and Magne versus Mandalay and Tiger? They are interspersed through all of this. It's one of my favorites, though, just because it shows the fractions within the League of Villains, because Spinner very specifically is a disciple of Stain, to the point where Deku shows up, does his whole thing of relaying information to Mandalay, and then runs off, and Spinner stops Magne from going after Deku, because he's like, that's one of the heroes that Stain recognized as being worthy of All Might's legacy. You are not to stop him.
In other words, he has a moral code other than just destroy everything because we hate heroes.
Whereas...
Exactly.
Hold on. What if I just magnetize men and women to be different poles?
That's literally your quirk. That's not part of the moral discussion we're having right now. But the point is, and then they get their faces punched in by Tiger. But I just wanted to bring that up because I really do like showing that despite the fact that Stain was defeated like 2 arcs ago, his cultural effect on villains is still being felt and is still having an active impact on our heroes.
I don't necessarily know I want to hugely praise Horikoshi for this, because this is a pretty basic element of world building and character writing, but like the it kind of goes to show that it's harder to organize the villains than it is the heroes, because the heroes want a peaceful world where people don't have to bother with the superhero shenanigans at all. And everybody basically wants that. You know, like there are some exceptions like Endeavor, but they're outliers. Whereas when it comes to the villains, you have someone like Muscular who just wants to inflict violence on people. You have people like Magne, who's a pretty garden variety criminal who just doesn't care about the law and thinks he's above it. And then you have guys like Spinner, who is
an idealist.
He's an idealist, yeah. I mean, almost an anti-hero to some extent, where he wants to make the world a better place. He's just going about it in the worst possible way.
I just appreciated the fact that he had the grafted blade way before Elden Ring came out. But yeah, that's basically the extent of that. They are defeated rather swiftly afterwards. Onto some more fights. Deku is running through the woods before he is apprehended by Shoji, and I also really like this because Tokoyami. Too many people have similar names in this.
It's 30 characters, that's why.
Yeah.
Tokoyami, whose quirk becomes more unstable and destructive in darkness, had a friend attacked and mutilated in the dark of night. So Dark Shadow is currently rampaging. Shoji's like, it's okay. It was one of my spare arms from my quirk. It's not actually a debilitating injury, but he's not internalizing that. And right now he's attacking anything that makes sound. Oh, I shouldn't have talked. Smash.
Tokoyami is telling Shoji to just leave. If there's nothing around, then I can't damage anything. But Shoji doesn't want to leave, his friend behind in that state.
Say what you will about, like, kind of forcing tension. I would say that this is the biggest offender in that regard in this reading, but there's a moment where Shoji's like, I'm not leaving my friend behind. I know you want to go to Bakugo. Midoriya, what are we doing? Make a choice. And the last panel of the chapter is, I'm sorry, Shoji. Like, he's going to leave Tokoyami behind. But then, halfway through the next chapter, of course, he said both.
Yeah.
The reason I don't have a problem with that is because of the answer. Because
Same. I'm just saying it feels like a cheap cliffhanger because it kind of is. But
well, yeah,
at the same time, I'm not gonna argue about the destination.
Yeah, it is a weekly series, so like I guess the other thing I should maybe mention is that I didn't really have that impression almost entirely because I did read all these chapters of a weekly series over the course of a week. So, I did read the next chapter immediately. And,
over 2 days.
Look,
I say self-derisively.
Look, the thing is, I honestly do think that there is a part of Deku who would actually make the call to leave Tokoyami. It's almost like in a trolley problem sense. It's like Tokoyami, if there's nobody around, the sun will come up eventually and dark shadow will recede. So like strictly speaking, Bakugo is the bigger priority, like in a trolley problem sense. And Mr. Logic over here, who's always coming up with clever plans, I could see him coming to that conclusion. But then Deku, is, one of the most reflexively heroic characters in a magazine that is built almost entirely around that character archetype, especially, in the last several years. And so, he ultimately makes the choice of the best way of helping Tokoyami is getting him near light. Bakugo can produce light with his quirk.
I'm going to step in here. I don't believe Deku would deal well with trolley problems at all. He is the definition of All Might Jr. I think his solution would be every time I jump on the tracks,
throw himself into the trolley. Yes,
reject your switch. I wouldn't push a very fat man onto the trolley.
If anything, this should be brought into their curriculum. I feel like this is like heroism, like 101.
All Might just teaching trick questions. Okay, so this is the trolley problem. What would you do in this scenario? I guess left track? You fail!
The correct answer is to destroy both tracks.
We don't know what the higher level classes at UA look like.
It's the higher level class, though. It's basic decision making.
I'm gonna be honest, from what I've seen of UA, I refuse to believe they have any grades higher than freshmen. Like,
We'll get there.
That is objectively disproven in the next arc, but I believe you.
I was going to say, up to this point, that is a reasonable thing. I only know that there are other classes entirely because I have seen a little bit. I haven't seen the full next arc, but I've seen a little bit more of the anime where they're like, oh, by the way, yes, there are other classes. That is a weird thing that's never come up before, isn't it, guys?
What about when the school was attacked? Shut up. Okay.
Horikoshi-sensei, I love you and I love your manga, but your world building needs to be maybe 12 steps ahead instead of 2.
Man, it's weird. Where was the entire country of Germany during the 1930s? They were all on vacation.
Deku does have the big brain play, and they run towards signs of Bakugo and or Todoroki, which is good because they are fighting the creepiest motherfucker in history. They are fighting Moonfish, the Tooth Gimp.
Oh god, that is an accurate name.
Yeah, that is a perfectly accurate description of that character.
Their personality is literally, I want to consume the innards of children, so...
Yes, children specifically. It was very uncomfortable to read.
I'm just saying...
Show me flesh.
Did they name Moonfish's quirk?
Being super creepy. It has something to do with... It has to do with his teeth, though.
I'm just going to guess his quirk's name is Tooth Fairy.
Oh god, probably.
I don't know, but now that's my new headcanon and I hate it.
That sounds disturbingly plausible.
I hate this.
Because his whole thing is he extends his teeth as spear-like weapons.
Is that all he can do, or is he currently being restricted by the Gimp outfit?
I think he's in the Gimp outfit because he's a death row inmate.
Or it's just he's an exhibitionist. I mean, he's just an alternative character.
Can we just add that to the list of things that's wrong with the Hiroaka universe? Is they put their death row inmates in Gimp outfits? Like, that seems a little weird.
And they didn't cover his mouth. The one thing.
Oh god.
Yeah, like this isn't a restrictive measure. He's perfectly fine.
I think you guys are questioning it too much. Anyway, I was just wondering about his dental bills. Because I mean, seriously, imagine if he had braces.
Look, they don't go into that detail because unfortunately Moonface doesn't get a lot of time to shine.
No, not at all.
No, because they lure Dark Shadow rampaging over there and he breaks every tooth in his mouth.
I mean, he put him out there. What do you expect to happen? They're going to break your teeth.
Exactly.
And then Bakugo's explosions and Todoroki's fire are able to create enough light to calm down Dark Shadow.
Bakugo's standing there with his firecracker hands going, I am your worst matchup. Like we're in a fighting game.
Yeah, that's
Bakugo thinks they are. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, time for my least favorite character.
Hey, you gotta be nice to Uraraka. Okay? You're gonna make more enemies if you just keep shooting her down.
I love Uraraka, okay? It's Toga. I fucking hate Toga.
Love Toga.
Yeah,
and I
Toga's
mean
great.
that I have like a love-hate relationship. I understand, Sam, why you don't like her, but for those reasons are why I like her.
Sam doesn't like it when women have independence and free agency.
Sam doesn't like it when characters in fiction remind him of his psychotic exes.
But she is knife wielding, and I can only assume Russian because she is blonde.
She could be.
I can just leave.
We get a fight between Uraraka and Tsuya against Toga.
Toga's just being super creepy.
I wanted to like this fight better than I ended up because it's a lot of buildup that kind of then gets thrown away.
The big thing of this fight is that it doesn't actually do anything that we haven't seen before, because like we already know that Uraraka has gotten a lot better at direct physical combat after her internship with Gunhead. There's an element of like, let's move along with the plot, and
Sue gets her tongue cut off, and then they don't really seem to care about that. Like,
it's not cut off. It's not even. It's just it's a bleeding scratch on her tongue, but it is.
It is a flesh wound. She is also an amphibian.
Is Toga really bad with that knife then?
I think what you're supposed to take away is that Sue is that good with the dexterity on her tongue.
Yes, which is why all the fan fiction exists.
I hate that you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
I hate that you're right.
Anyway,
I walked away with this not really understanding what Toga's like backpack did. I think it was like a vacuum for her knife.
It's a weird suction thing that's supposed to draw blood out through the knife.
Yes, so her entire like quirk is like blood fused or blood fuel
involved.
Yeah,
he has
That's just it. I don't think we saw her use her
No,
quirk.
we have not seen her use her quirk.
That comes up in the next arc.
I think actually one of the last things that I saw in the anime was the point where it explains what Toga's quirk is.
But yeah, she wants to harvest their blood and does it in a super cringy, creepy way. And there's less fighting, at least from my perspective, than just freaking everyone out. Like, what the hell is this chick?
This fight is Toga's creepy and set up, I guess, for something that will happen in the future because it gets interrupted.
Yeah.
As much as I hate Toga, it does have one of the moments that I think is just objectively funny, where she's like, I like ragged guys who reek of blood, and it's a picture of Stain during that. And then, like, not even a page later, the boys crash into the scene, and there's Deku, ragged and reeking of blood, hanging off Shoji's back, and Toga looks at him, sparkles in eyes. It filled me with a primal terror, but it was very funny.
Yeah, I think the big thing, like the narrative utility of this fight is it's getting Toga to meet Deku.
You gotta have that meet cute.
Yeah, basically, in the
that
worst
meet
way.
cute where he's stabbing his actual love interest.
Yes, because that's how you replace his actual love interest.
This would be a very different manga, but
no.
But yeah,
I've read that manga.
Now that we've gotten everybody together at this point,
the Bakugo Bodyguard Battalion, much to his chagrin.
There's a lot of cases over the course of this where, and I actually love this because it's actually a pretty good character moment for Bakugo. There's a lot of cases where he'll be like, I refuse to go along with this plan. And then he proceeds to go along with the plan because he knows arguing is pointless and wrong. Like, he just accepts it. He just has to vocalize that he's not happy about it.
Scared? There was nothing scary. I was just holding him off.
They had Tokoyami in the back because, Dark Shadow is a second pair of eyes. But unfortunately, both Bakugo and Tokoyami disappear from behind them.
Yep. I feel kind of bad for saying that Twice was my favorite of the Vanguard Action Squad because I also love Compress. He's really fun.
Yeah, I like Compress.
It is revealed by a showboating stage magician of a villain that they have been whisked away, spirited away right under their very noses and put into 2 tiny marbles. And now I bid you adieu as he leaps away through the trees.
The rest of this arc is the chase scene,
which is actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
It involves Todoroki, Shoji, and Deku being made 0G'd by Uraraka and then flung on the frog tongue of Tsuyu.
None of them seem on board for it either, too.
Literally everybody except Deku is like, is this a good idea? This is the best idea. We have to save them.
Is this a good idea? No, it is the only idea.
And they do have a great moment of flying through the air to crash into Compress and smash him down into the clearing where the Vanguard Action Squad is getting ready to leave. Dabi just kind of looks over like, what the hell? We're extracting here. What is this? You're bringing a fight to the extraction point?
It is,
Come on!
It is set up like the Vanguard Action Squad is about to step through a Kurogiri portal, and then all of a sudden, here's Deku, Shoji, and Todoroki landing on Compress. Long story short,
Compress is a magician.
He's able to get out from under them, and Shoji pickpockets the marbles out of Mr. Compress's pocket, but unfortunately,
magician always has a trick up his sleeve or in his mouth. And then I'm just
I don't know why he did that in particular, but okay.
I'm just saying, dude had full lines of dialogue while having 2 balls in his mouth. Editing, Sam, maybe. I don't know. It makes sense in context.
Increase the decibels on it. You got it, Chief.
God damn it.
Poor Aoyama, where he was the entire time, they have a couple of shots of him that are, like, his comedically terrified face, but in all honesty, like, what was he going to do? I really feel for the poor guy who's stuck there in a really bad situation.
I really like Aoyama in this because, like, he gets the same message everyone else does, and Class B gets this a lot more than Class A because main character syndrome, probably, to be fair. But, like, everyone is just like, hey, we got told we can use our quirks. That doesn't necessarily mean fight. That means get away. And then, like, you can see a lot of people individually are fighting with the thing like, but we want to be heroes. Shouldn't we fight villains? That's, like, the thing. If we just run away, are we ever going to be heroes? Aoyama is actually constantly fighting with that wall hiding.
Yeah.
And it's at the very end, my boy suddenly gets up the courage to go like, no, I'm going to step up and make a difference from the safety of this bush because I'm still a coward, but I'm working on it. And shoots his navel laser.
There's also a strong argument to be made that was the perfect time to act because the villains were leaving.
Yeah.
Like that was, I really like that moment for him.
It's still him fighting against his fear because he was hiding. There's no second guessing that. But yeah, he shoots his naval laser, smashes Collapser.
Mr. Compress's mask.
Yeah, and he spits out both of the balls. He catches the one that's Bakugo, but the other one falls out. And
as they're both falling, and they don't know which is which. Actually, I don't think anyone knows which is which at first. And Shoji is able to catch one of them, but Dabi is able to snatch the other one away from Todoroki. This is going to be really important for the discussion questions later, but the big thing is Deku couldn't do anything because both of his arms were broken.
He could not do a damn thing unless he could, like, get close enough to bite Dabi's fingers off.
I'm just saying, arguably, Deku's dead weight. He shouldn't have come along at all.
Yeah.
Looking like Nero in the beginning of Devil May Cry 5.
And Dabi is able to snatch the other marble away from Todoroki, and we get set up that I don't know the payoff of. I mean, I can make a couple of guesses, but I don't know the payoff of where it seems that Dabi has particular knowledge of Todoroki. Dabi sees that he has in fact gotten the marble with Bakugo in it, so Mr. Compress releases his quirk and they leave.
And we have a rather poignant visual of Bakugo being drawn into the darkness saying, "Stay back, Deku."
Mm-hmm.
And Deku, being the good friend he is, consistently does not listen to people.
The next chapter opens on him collapsed on the ground screaming.
Oh, and we start getting the wrap up of all this event, and I don't know. The most surprising to me was they say they can't find Ragdoll. They just found a puddle of blood where she was last seen. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, this whole thing was an absolute McMahon disaster.
The only two silver linings is nobody's dead, at least, but two people are missing, and Yaoyorozu, with the help of one of the Class 1B students, was able to...
I think.
Tetsu and Kendo are the only two Class 1B students I know.
I'm going to be honest. I put as much care and attention into Class 1B as the manga did, so I know none of their names.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Kendo, and Tetsu is pretty distinctive. But...
Oh, that's also my favorite part. I loved the two panels where they just explicitly said Class 1B was worse. And I'm like, well, that doesn't seem to be what you said earlier.
Yaoyorozu was able to get a tracker on a Nomu that the Vanguard Action Squad had brought.
Favorite is how that Nomu's introduced, is Dabi just being like, oh, that's right, Shigaraki did give me a Nomu to come. It's my own personalized one. And then we cut to it. It's covered in chainsaws. And I'm like, that's a good Nomu.
It's out here looking like Denji.
Oh no, they got Denji.
They got his quirk of Chainsaw Man.
Quite the quirk.
The Nomu is recalled, and because they are basically automatons, it walks away and doesn't even flinch as it gets a tracking beacon welded onto its lower back. And so now the heroes know where that Nomu is going, which means they have information on the location of the villains, which is cold comfort to Deku, who is racked by terrible pain and fever, and also Bakugo, who is kidnapped, and everybody else. Oh god.
Needless to say, their summer break was cut a little short.
Yeah, but this is about the halfway point of our reading, so we are going to jump into a quick break. We will catch you all in a few moments where we resume this and get into the Bakugo retrieval arc. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Where last we left our young heroes, they had just repelled the Vanguard Action Squad of the League of Villains. Unfortunately, repelled is a bit of a exaggeration, because most people have been beaten to absolute hell, including Midoriya, whose arms are basically so fucked up he's got like one life left in them. And Bakugo has been kidnapped. Also, Ragdoll is like gone. There was only a puddle of blood. What happened?
Ragdoll, presumed dead.
Yeah, it's a bad situation all around, which is where we rejoin our primary characters, specifically in this case Midoriya in the hospital, who, look, I don't want to be too harsh on the boy, but also, you gotta be better to your mom, man.
Yeah.
He literally wakes up from 2 days of being racked by pain and fever, rolls over, sees a like little note on the desk in his mom's handwriting, and thinks about Bakugo.
Yeah, that's a little, I mean, I have to... At first, I was a little concerned about the fan fictions I've been reading, but now I'm beginning to see why.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna say, Deku in this entire arc is written as if he is a love interest to Bakugo.
Yes, or other way around, because it's very much not reciprocated at this point.
Yes, you're right. It would be he has a love interest in Bakugo.
But yeah, poor Midoriya's mom. He's just trying to make sure, you know, her only child is okay.
Yeah.
You know, he's had a pretty rough start to this school, and
rough start. A doctor has just told him, like, his arms, despite the fact he is being supernaturally healed by the nurse with her quirk, like, he has been told his arms might become unusable if he does this exact same thing 2 or 3 more times. And I'm just like, buddy, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but maybe giving an exact number is not the way to deal with this.
Like, well, you got to remember, he's a medical professional, so he's kind of got to make sure that he covers his own, like, potentially. You don't want to say you only have one more time.
Then say never do it again, not you can only probably do this 2 or 3 more times.
Not something to the dangerously self-sacrificing person. Hey, you've got about 2 more lives in you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to this doctor, he doesn't know Deku, but giving Deku a number anywhere higher than 0 is not a good idea.
You mean the lives of 2 other people, right? No, I mean your arms. I mean righty and lefty.
I mean, I don't know, coach. Doctor said I can only take 4 more concussions and then I die. What?
For 2 more. You can at least do 2 more runs. Let's get in there.
That sounds like 3 more games I got in me. It does have a bit of that energy as Class 1A arrives to try to cheer him up.
That's such an old reference. No one is going to get that.
What?
I'm leaving it in anyway.
I'm confused. But yes.
Concussions.
But anyway, Mineta standing there with a melon like, I brought you this melon in this trying time.
In all fairness, they all chipped in. This is an expensive melon.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very big one.
And they obviously let the person most experienced at holding melons.
Period, yes.
Yes.
There's definitely not a metaphor in there anywhere. What are you talking about?
But look, the one thing that's giving Midoriya hope right now is that despite everything that's happened, he got a thank you letter from Kota for saving his life, which starts off with "Sorry for punching you in the junk."
Look, he apologized directly.
The kid's like 7. I'm not gonna critique his thank you letter writing technique right now.
Well, it's not vague; it's directly to the point. Hey, that thing I did. Sorry.
I appreciate that.
It's kind of cringe. Sorry about that. Thanks for saving my life. Get well soon. And this is all Deku needs to revitalize his heroic spirit to go on the basically suicide mission that Kirishima and Todoroki are proposing.
I'm going to defend these guys because
I am being hyperbolic.
Yeah. But it is worth noting that, like, the thing I like about this is, even at their craziest, Kirishima and Todoroki legit weren't going to try to get into a fight. And it's a good thing that the chaperones were there for what's to come. But I mean, like, particularly for Todoroki and Deku, like, this is a good moment of growth for them.
And my takeaway from this was so different that I thought they were constantly going like, yeah, we're totally not going to get into a fight, right? No one's planning to illegally use our quirks. Yeah, we're just going to go reconnaissance. Yeah. Like, they're all just hyping each other up.
The reason I didn't read it that way was because they don't say what the plan is until the two chaperone, and the way I'm putting it is, it's never said to the audience what their actual plan is until the chaperones show up. Mm-hmm. Until and it's like, it's the way that it's framed to the audience.
Until and Ida are there.
The way it's framed to the audience is that they're going to do that. But then once they actually talk out loud about what the plan is and present it to the audience, not just each other, then they explain that, no, we know that's stupid and won't help. You know, I mean, like, there is the element of how much would Kirishima really have been able to hold himself back if Ida and Yaoyorozu weren't there? You know, like, that's a personality element of Kirishima in particular, and honestly Deku to a large extent.
In all fairness, Momo does have an internal monologue about, like, you know, we can say we're not going to get into a fight, but realistically, how likely is that?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that is on everyone's mind. It's like, probably going to be some some fighting going on.
Well, the only reason that Yaoyorozu agreed to it was once they see that there is no way to help without actually fighting, we will drag them away, telling them "I told you so." Is what she says in an internal monologue at one point.
Sure, Momo, keep telling yourself that. So, yeah, Yaoyorozu, you can make a second one of those tracking beacons that you gave to the cops, right? Yeah. All right, cool. You're our eyes. Let's go.
Is this the chapter where they explain the quirk law? Because it got brought up in the last one, but there's like an entire end panel discussing it in this one.
I think it's actually during the forest fight around the time that Aizawa mentions that they're allowed to fight.
Yeah, and but there's the need to explain, I know that sounds really weird, but let me justify it. And then Matt reading it's just like, I don't feel like you've justified it at all. I still think it sounds really weird.
For my own purposes, I'll just say this is your mileage may vary moment. So I'm not, decrying Matt or saying that any interpretation is entirely correct. For me, it was enough that they were like, yeah, we're not going to let the kids with guns run around freely.
It outright says this in that end panel explanation. This is not actually a particularly well-written law, and people complain about it because it doesn't make sense. That's actually in the end panel explanation of the law, that it was something that was written into law in panic at the rise of quirks and never really got fixed.
I am personally a rather large proponent of having things in world building that are poorly thought out, not because the author poorly thought them out, but because people in universe
made mistakes. Yeah, no.
That adds verisimilitude to the universe. I will say that as much as I love Horikoshi and I love this manga, there are moments where it feels more like the former than the latter.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I don't really ever get that extended world building from Horikoshi. I get something will be slapped on later to explain a weird thing that happened is much more that than the former. But I think this has come up literally every time we've talked about the world building in My Hero. It is in service to the story, not really.
Yeah, getting that sense isn't unreasonable because this is about the character's journey first, and it will put the world building on a backseat. I'm sort of taking My Hero at its word when it comes to that sort of thing, but also I like this series more than Matt does, so of course I'm more willing to accept it.
I was fine with that in the context of the forest arc. The problem is during this Bakugo retrieval arc, they sure do love mentioning this law repeatedly. So it's just okay, I guess they're all on board with it. Cool. And then it ends up not mattering, so whatever.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the way it ends up not mattering because it is our characters playing within the rules of the universe. In case you couldn't tell by all the hyping up I've been doing, I really like this particular segment of this arc. The Bakugo rescue section is one of my favorites just because of the way that it kind of pays off all the various character things that have been happening, the buildup of the world building, shaky ground it might stand on, unimportant. The important part is everyone's playing within the rules of the universe, and it's a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean the next section then? Because this section is the one where they go to the place, and then there's a dress-up montage.
Yeah.
because Moneybags Yaoyorozu wanted to know what it was like to go thrift shopping.
Yaoyorozu just being unbelievably adorable.
They all come out of the shop looking like skeezy adults because they've glued facial hair on.
Well, hey, she justifies it by saying it's important, to contribute to the economy because, yeah, she could just make everything for free. But I mean, that wouldn't be into anyone's long-term benefit, right?
Arguably, if she's capable of making everything for free, she should do that, though.
Well, yeah, love...
You talking to me? There's an Earl Gay with ig boobs obey over there.
I love that the dumbest member of this squad, Kirishima, and to be fair, Kirishima isn't one of the dum-dums, but he's the least intellectual of the group present, and he's the one who points out that you just wanted to go thrift shopping. You can just say it. We're your friends.
You don't need to
he thinks that
but then she would be living up to a stereotype. You can't admit that you're right. Hey guys, can we just go shopping? I really want to go shopping. I can't say that in a herd of guys.
Meanwhile, as this entire very adorable segment is happening, we're having some actual introspective character moments with Bakugo, and I will say, as I said in the Discord chat of this podcast, I think this is peak Bakugo right here, because Shigaraki is sitting there like
a creeper.
He's sitting there like a creeper. So, we've got you. We've won here. Now, I've seen the way that you act. I saw the way that you were at the end of the sports festival. You're violent. You're explosive. You want to win. You must feel so suffocated by these rules of society. Now, untie him. We're treating him as an equal. Come, join us, and we will kaboom as Bakugo slaps the hand off of his face. Stands there saying, I never thought you'd shut up. I hate people that can't get to the point. Now I'm gonna blow up each and every one of you and leave.
In other words, some more characters who just don't understand Bakugo. Like, they do not understand him.
That's the thing I love about this section. They literally don't understand him. They just saw the presentation of him being, as you said in the last episode, Jay, the rage puppy on the podium of the freaking sports festival. And they're like, oh, he's like us. They are objectively wrong, and it bites them in the ass.
I'm dare say it backfired.
There is layers to the degree which they're wrong, because whilst this is happening, the League of Villains is playing the press conference of UA apologizing for the incident.
Stepping in here, the most unrealistic part about My Hero Academia's world building, that the entertainment district would stop and watch this press conference happen.
Probably not wrong. Press conference is playing on TV, and there's the whole, the media circus is inevitably happening, and Shigaraki points that out, like how quick they turn on their supposed heroes. Doesn't that make you want to switch sides? And I mean, here's the thing. Bakugo has always been very clear about who he is and what he values. The way that he goes about those things is overtly problematic, but he has always wanted to save people and help people. And it's the obsession with the raw power of a quirk and placing value of a person on that axiom that's a large part of Bakugo's issues. And then you get a moment in the press conference where one of the reporters makes a comment about how the person who got kidnapped had to be tied up because he was being a rage puppy during the sports festival. How do you know that, he won't be turned by the villains who captured him? And Aizawa once again points out, if that's what you took away from that, then you don't understand him. He is...
I love this, because Aizawa stands up like he's about to spout off in an absolute rage. Like Vlad King is even like, Aizawa, please don't play into their hands.
He's hating you.
He's very much known to very strongly dislike the media at any point. So this is from the get-go. He is very uncomfortable, and people are constantly trying to be like, keep calm. It's okay. We have to do this, though.
Yes, but Aizawa bows and says, look, with all respect, I know Bakugo. He's my student. I know what he displayed at those events. That is not the totality of him. And if what the villains think is what you just said, then they are thinking so superficially that I honestly doubt their intelligence. He basically just he stands up and says that these smooth brains can't do character reading.
There's a fun moment of Bakugo, it's one of the happiest moments of he's not even angry happy or scary happy. He's actually just really happy to hear that. The thing I really like about that is there's something that was actually, even when we were doing the analysis of the scene in our reading, it's something that in universe is easy to miss. And it's something that whilst, I mean, like it, it was an important element that we pointed out, but we didn't emphasize it. One of the big things is when Bakugo was fighting Araraka and everyone was booing Bakugo, one of the things that Aizawa said was that if you see Araraka as a weak little girl who can't defend herself, then you don't understand her and you can just leave. But the other thing that was important is the reverse was also true. If you see Bakugo as a brute for attacking that savagely, then you don't understand him. He is using everything he has against a worthy opponent. That's a sign of respect.
Yes, he's a feminist.
And like the really important element is Bakugo has problematic behaviors, and like Aizawa is even like, as his teacher, I should be working to correct that, and I have not succeeded at this point, and that's a failure on my part as a teacher, which again, poor Aizawa is taking on so much in this section. But he goes as far as saying that Bakugo is very clear about what he believes. He is a hero. There's no question there. Whatever his, personality issues are, his rage can't be used to make him, willingly join the evil side. He wants to do good, and he's said so many times, and if you're not paying attention to that...
If you're not listening to literally what he's saying, and what he's like demonstrated, yes, this is what he wants.
And like, I love that moment because that goes to reinforce like so many other elements of his character. Like this is something that had been very heavily implied since pretty much his introduction. And, every time he's been a major player in a story beat, like this has always been the thing. It's like, he's not okay. He's a rage puppy. That's not good, but he always has good intentions.
This is one of the reasons why I love this arc so much. Because this arc, as we'll get to in a minute, does a lot to make Deku and Shigaraki as parallels. Because they are both the proteges of powerful forces from the previous generation who are trying to become independent and create a world in their own image. Like, those parallels are obvious. That's being screamed at you by the work. But this entire time, we've had this thing of Bakugo and Deku are not too dissimilar. They both admire All Might to a fanatical and almost unhealthy degree. As Bakugo himself, in a incredibly dramatic panel of him looking like a cackling supervillain, says, "I admire All Might's triumphs." And he's got that same heroic spirit that Deku does. He just expresses it in a more...
Very differently.
Very differently.
I didn't even want to say worse because Deku is very... It's very easy to argue that Deku is just as bad in the opposite direction.
So this parallel, this mirror shines three ways. It is Bakugo, Shigaraki, and Deku in this triangle, this conflux of the various ways of the world coming together, and how are things going to shake out when all of them clash, and who stands victorious? And that is why I fucking love this arc. Anyway,
and then All Might punches a hole in a wall.
He punches a hole in a wall, screaming, "I am here!"
Yeah, first off, he does the stupid knock knock pizza delivery.
Knock, 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 Kamui pizza delivery. Well, no, that's someone else. And then the wall gets punched in. as All Might is going,
but alas, there was no pizza.
Hey, Sam, was it explicitly someone else? Because if not, I'm going to assume it was All Might.
Well, he does say Kamui pizza, so I think that was Kamui Woods, but it also could have been All Might either way. I believe either.
They're all Kamui pizza. That's the code name for the rescue operation.
The point being...
There was no pizza.
There was no pizza, there was only violence.
Really bad guys on both sides, then.
No.
Look, you don't lie about pizza.
Yeah.
That is the depths of evil.
Saying the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would beat up both parties.
I just love how incredibly powerful All Might looks in this. As he's walking in all shadowed and muscular and powerful, making proclamations of "It ends here, Tomura Shigaraki. This is the decline of your League of Villains."
All Might has a lot of really cool chapter covers in this section.
Mm-hmm.
They're drawn like American comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Looks really cool. Except for the one where he's got glistening white teeth. That one was just kind of creepy.
To highlight those parallels I was saying earlier, as All Might is making this declaration of justice, this proclamation that your evil ends here, Shigaraki is having these flashbacks to the moment where he met the ultimate evil, where he met All for One. And parallel to the flashbacks of what All for One said in those moments of "Everyone's abandoned you, I am here for you," Shigaraki screams at All Might, "I hate you." And as if summoned by his malice, Nomus explode out of the scenery.
Yeah, and the thing I was going to mention that is a really cool moment for this scene is they actually do a good job of, because it's like Kamui Woods, the way he was introduced to the audience was a joke, showing one of the big flaws of the superheroic society of, if you're flashy enough, then it almost seems to matter more than whether or not you protect people. Because that's the first bit that you get introduced to Mount Lady knocking out the monster that had gone on a rampage instead of Kamui Woods. But the heroes, when they come in, it's not just All Might who is shown to be incredibly powerful. They have the League of Villains absolutely on lock. It is not even a question how this is going to go. And it really sets up how are the villains supposed to get out of this, because the manga isn't ending right now.
If basically Lucifer didn't intervene, the League of Villains was unmade right here.
Yeah, every recourse that Shigaraki thought he had been accounted for. And that's when we get the moment of him flashing back to All for One and screaming to All Might, "I hate you." And then suddenly Nomus everywhere, even though they were supposedly already raiding the Nomu production facility. They also managed to find Ragdoll.
Yeah, because the kids went to their tracker location and then found the Nomu production facility. Are like, "Oh no, this is way over our heads. What are we gonna?" Building gets smashed in by Mountain Lady. They are several steps behind.
Yeah.
The pros and the police are already on top of this. Maybe we shouldn't be here.
That's what I really like about this, though, is this is something you wouldn't see in a lot of things that try for a more dramatic angle. No, they used the full force of their entire resources to smash this threat into dust. There's no, we'll send an equal amount to combat this team because that creates a cool dynamic.
That's dramatic. Yeah, no, they go for the overkill. There is even a point where Mount Lady is like, "This seems almost too easy." And I'm pretty sure it's Best Jeanist who's like, "That was the point."
We did everything we could to make this too easy.
Someone were to be watching this story, they should be upset at how quickly everything was demolished.
Now, hold on a second. I'm sensing some malice in the shadows. Boom!
Now, hold on. That could just be an ordinary civilian. You serious?
No. Now, editing same in the future. Put in the piano. As all of our heroes in this scene are in complete disarray. The Nomus have been summoned into the bar, and the League of Villains have been whisked away with the same power. Even Bakugo has been taken basically straight out of All Might's arms, to his incredible dismay. And in the wake of the blast, which is not even worthy of a panel, it is one page, everything is there. The next page, dust and debris and fallen bodies.
There is a cylindrical crater where the heroes had been a moment before.
It is a One Punch Man panel.
It is a One Punch Man panel from the perspective of everyone who is not Saitama, as a man hangs there in the air like a corpse on a tree bough, saying, "Well, That's about what I expected from the fourth best hero. Unfortunately for you, Genist, your quirk is not what I need. Now, let's see to the rest of it. And all the kids are frozen in absolute mortal terror. The understanding of death and oblivion has fallen upon them, and they cannot stand before All for One. And it is one of the most harrowing moments in the entire anime and the entire manga.
And I mean, like, you get the internal monologues of each of the characters, and there's Deku and Kirishima thinking, if I don't do something now, then what am I even here for? And like, that is a incredibly stupid decision. If you show yourself now, he'll just do to you what he did to all the pro heroes. Like, and I like the chapter title, because the chapter title is from Ida to Midoriya. I don't remember if it's from Ida to Midoriya or from Ida to Deku, but the one who's able to move first is Ida, who made the stupid decision last time, and he physically holds them back.
They are so incredibly outclassed, and Ida is the one who had to go through this like most personally. He had to be rescued by other people because he jumped into a thing he was unprepared for and made so much trouble for everyone else. He had to stop his friends because he's like, no, I have done exactly this. We're not doing this.
You taught me to not do this, and now it's my turn to stop you.
Also, we can all agree we never really liked Bakugo, so we can just dip. And I'm like, Ida, you're making a lot of sense now.
That's not actually what happens.
No, it's not.
But yeah, because they lost contact, because the hero team that was at the bar lost contact with the other team, All Might can reasonably assume where, most of the fight is happening, because these are the like mass-produced nomus that pretty much any of the pros can, at the very least, handle. So he heads off towards, well, it was an abandoned factory. Now it is rubble. The way that the characters, like, particularly All for One talks about it, it's one of those ones where it's like, this is like a rematch of the fight that crippled All Might, except both of them are like barely on their feet.
They're barely on their feet from the start.
So like, what was that original fight like?
Look, okay, in the outline, I made the joke of they have their Essence 5 brawl, my mandatory Exalted reference. I
give you that one, yeah.
Yeah, 5 years ago when they were at their full power, this was Essence 6, 7. It was beyond mortal capability in every regard. And we see a bare fraction of that as All Might throws all of his raw power into All for One's face, his mask-covered face, and is stopped cold.
Yeah, I will say, and I don't know if this is me misremembering the anime or if the manga does this differently, but I really, like, one thing that I really honestly kind of liked was, man, All for One really chews the scenery, and it makes him such a, like, I don't know quite how to put it. It's like an endearingly hateable villain or something.
I mean, he does it in both, but there's kind of a more inherent.
It feels like he talks more in the manga, and like he's just always like, I don't know. I kind of, even to some extent, get a little bit of an evil Deku vibe, where he's sort of always kind of like musing to himself about the situation, and
like the part where he says that he miscalculated feels like a moment of someone who thinks like Deku, saying, "Oh, whoop, I made a wrong play."
He's such a presence in the scene. Like, he's not just the big bad. It does such a good job of, like, he's not just powerful. Like, they sell that he's a manipulator. They sell that he's a leader, and that he's, capable of, like, creating the Dark Empire Imperial March, blah, 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 that was mentioned about him prior.
Again, it's why he has that super dramatic entrance. He's got that piano in the anime. He's got all the grandeur that you would expect from the BBEG. Despite the fact that we're only like a quarter of the way through the manga at this point, that's kind of the thing I love about this section. Because this manga is ultimately, Jake, I know this is one of your favorite things about Dragon Ball, particularly DBZ, is the entire thing about this manga is it's a passing of the torch story.
Mm-hmm.
This final clash between All Might and All for One is the ultimate clash of which torch will burn brightest, who will pass it with the greatest flame unto their protege, because All Might is fighting to defeat his ultimate villain, while All for One is here saying, like, I'm just buying time for Tomura Shigaraki to get away.
I'm going to try to win, but if I lose, I don't care as long as Shigaraki gets away.
Mm-hmm. He is the inheritor of my will. He is my protege. By the way, All Might, did you know this? He's the grandson of your mentor. It is a moment that hits so hard, because by this point, All Might is just down to his skeleton form, only able to like buff up a single arm like he's emulating Deku of pouring everything into a single limb, and it's just his heroic will carrying him on. And then All for One hits him with, "You've been fighting the offspring of the person you admire most. The legacy of the person that you admire."
And that's where I had to time in, and I felt like I understand where the manga's going, but you lost me with saying that's her grandson.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is just me as the reader speaking, fully understanding where the manga's trying to take this. Who cares? Your grandson could be an asshole and could not inherit your quirks. We already know there's a lot of variety there. The fact that he wasn't even around when you knew your mentor, you know, like, what if that was her second cousin or something? It's like okay.
I had a much more impact from All Might going into his skeleton form while the like news media drones.
Yeah, that was more impactful than revealing the fact that, oh, by the way, that's her grandson. I'm like that. So
that line hit more like the parodies of Star Wars do come sometimes. It was like, yes, I am your nephew, and I'm just that's impactful because there's an entire movie of buildup of what Luke thinks of his father. I've literally never heard of this grandson before.
Here's the thing about all that, though, because Gran Torino actually says that to All Might.
Yes.
That doesn't matter.
I know.
And to me, what I took away from that moment is how it affects All Might, not my feelings about the fact that it's a character I don't know's grandson that has been the final villain.
And that's why I prefaced it with, I understand where the manga's going with this. But if it were me, from the reader's point of view, I would be like, with like Gran Torino, who cares? This is someone you never knew. He is exploiting All Might's weakness to, this is a descendant of somebody I knew, who he's not able to, in the moment, rationalize, wait, this is somebody who I was not even aware of. My mentor was not even aware of. He did not exist at that point in time. So it's like, in the moment, I understand where they're going. But
I get what you're trying to say, Jacob, but like when I then also got the explanation of who this grandson is, I'm like, oh, so I'm not really understanding why All Might cares that much, because it doesn't seem like anyone in this relationship cared.
It's a principled gut feeling of, this is related to my mentor. I have to have some kind of emotional attachment because it is affiliated with my mentor. But then rationally,
that's what I took away from the scene, where it's character informing of All Might. And this is actually another case where the fact that that All for One is kind of scenery chewing. One of the moments I really liked from that is the way that All for One convinces All Might that it's true. Is he says, "Isn't this exactly the kind of thing you would expect me to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And like that being proof enough that like that to me is a character moment, not meant for getting an emotional reaction out of the audience, because the biggest reaction...
I know what I'm trying to say is I 100% agree with you. I think it's dumb.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I am with Jake on I am siding a lot with All Might here right now. I understand where Matt and Jay are coming from. I'm kind of looking at this from a I don't really have a proper word or phrase for it, but I'm kind of
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude.
I just picked a random word.
No, not that. I am not a part of the League of Villains. Seeing it from a perspective of someone in universe, it's like this fight, and this is kind of the thing I love about this particular conflict, is this fight, this is a continuation of something that happened years ago. This is the final climax of a story that has been happening in the background of Deku's story that we've been following this entire time. It lends a real sense of continuous timeline, a sort of verisimilitudinous to the world, as we have these two massive forces clashing. And sure, we don't really understand why Shigaraki being All Might's mentor's grandson is important. That doesn't mean anything to us. It means a ton to All Might because he's been there for the entire build-up. And sure, I don't exactly get it, but I empathize with the emotion of it. And that makes it feel more like this is a real living, breathing world with a real living, breathing society that suddenly has to contend with everything that's happening now, including the entire sea change of All Might summoning up the last of his power, using everything he's learned through his entire life and everything he's picked up from Deku as being a mentor, learning from the student, to pour the final mote of his power into one massive United States of smash punch into All For One's face, driving him into the ground, ending his story. And now, truly, 92 chapters into the manga, it's finally Deku's turn.
The emotional impact from an audience perspective is the world gets to see what All Might has secretly been for the last 6 years. And people are like, is that really All Might? He looks like he's skin and bones. It's a moment that feels like it should be heroic, where he's stopped the greatest evil that has existed in that universe up to that point. He's standing triumphant, and he goes into his muscle form for a moment with his fist raised and everyone cheers, but then he doesn't have the strength to keep that form up. And he points at one of the cameras that's recording him and says, "Now it's your turn."
He's pointing at Deku, isn't he?
Well,
it just happens that the camera is right there.
Well, no, Deku is nowhere near this. He's like several blocks away.
He's like in a crowd, actually.
Yeah, he's several blocks away at this point, but All Might knows that Deku is watching. And
Deku is always watching.
He points into the camera and he says, "Now it's your turn," because the crowd, the way that the crowd takes it, and he phrased it this way on I assume he phrased it this way on purpose. The way that the crowd takes it is him saying that you villain out there, you're next. But yes. Deku understands that he is, metaphorically pointing directly at Deku and saying, "I'm done.
You take the mantle now."
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that was a beautiful moment.
I also love another really good Bakugo moment is that at first Bakugo is cheering with everybody, but he notices Deku's reaction and instantly understands what All Might meant, because he admires All Might in the same way.
Deku is sobbing. He is beside himself, just bawling his eyes out. And there is a great panel of Bakugo just looking at him. It's this beautiful blend of realization, anger, shock, just every human emotion wrapped up into one, as he's like, oh, Deku is his actual inheritor. That's whose turn it is.
explains why I've never seen Deku's dad around. It's all Might.
He wouldn't be the first person to assume that.
It's also not really a joke because I think that's what Bakugo's going on about.
Honestly, if I was in Bakugo's shoes, I would probably think the same thing. Because that's how quirks work.
It's also the fact that they both obviously have this, I want to say, rivalry. Bakugo refuses to even see, Deku is even a worthy opponent, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, the fact that the finality of Deku is definitely the successor, Bakugo wanted to at least be in the running, and this kind of squashes that.
Oh, yeah. It's gotta suck to have your hero, your icon, in his final, most impactful moment, point at your rival and say, it's your turn, to your rival, leaving you completely ignored.
Yes. It wasn't, it's up to you guys now. Like, that would have been equally as vague enough to have a double meaning. No, it's specifically Deku.
Your turn, yeah.
I know there's 30 main characters. From now on, we're not even going to pretend like Deku isn't the only one that matters. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to pull the ripcord.
See, that is definitely All Might's perspective, but I also have had a theory about how the story is going to end basically from the first... I shouldn't say from about like the test to get into UA. One of the big elements of the story is because they talk about now that All Might is definitely retiring now, he literally can't do superhuman things anymore. Now that he's retiring, the one pillar upon which the society was built is crumbling before everyone's very eyes. I sort of think that, one of the mistakes that All Might is making is society can't have just one pillar. And I feel like where the story might ultimately go would have to do with the idea that there isn't going to be one singular symbol of peace. That ranking the heroes isn't necessarily like that may or may not go away, but like the idea that, that Deku won't be the symbol of peace, that the members of Class 1A will collectively be the symbol of peace.
The pillars of hope.
Interesting take. Counterpoint. It is called My Hero Academia, not Our Hero Academia.
That's better than what I was going to say. I just wanted to know more, and I guess this will probably be revealed in later chapters and probably later on in the anime, but I want to know more about the discussions or consideration after, All Might, back in his prime, declared himself a pillar of peace. I know there's obviously, the rivalry that is within the top couple heroes. Did anyone else, try to put themselves or position themselves as, I want to also be a beacon of peace, not necessarily dethrone All Might? There seems to be so much buildup of, I want to be the number one hero, but they don't really give so much attention to what he stands for.
I think to a large extent that's what Endeavor's problem is, and now that he's technically the number one hero because All Might's retired, we see how he feels about that, which is a really...
He's so upset because his entire, everything that he's not really proud of what he's done.
He wanted to unseat All Might. He did not want him to retire.
And he's at the point where he's like, I've done a lot of shitty things to get where I am, and it was all meaningless because he retired. Also, there's a kind of implication that he was always so far ahead of me, I never possibly could have even matched up. So it was a fruitless endeavor.
I get his name now.
Yeah, the gap between them was so wide. As
the stronger he got, the more he realized the difference between them.
And we have this, just that thing that Horikoshi's great at, of just encompassing all of the character in a single panel, of Endeavor's eye clenched in rage and regret as it's an image of Todoroki and his wife. I was just like, I did these horrendous, inexcusable things to defeat you, and now you're just going to expire? You're just going to retire? You're just going to expend all of your power in this one random fight that just happened out of nowhere? What is this? What does this mean to me?
I don't know what to say, buddy.
What does this mean to my family, half of which I haven't talked to since they were born because they're disappointments? Actually,
That's not an exaggeration. Like, literally, he assessed them by their quirks, and if they did not have a very impressive quirk, he just discarded them.
We can do an entire thing on how Endeavor's not a good person. That's fine.
Yes.
The point is he understands he's not a good person and feels remorse for it, which is a stepping stone to being a better person, as opposed to the villains who revel in how awful they are.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, that is sort of the thing, because, you know, for someone as, like, it's like, how do you have sympathy for someone like Endeavor? Well, he gets what he did was wrong. And the fact that not only did he cross all of those lines, but now that he recognizes that they're for nothing, like, the pain there is so understandable. You know, it doesn't justify, like it's not like that's, it doesn't make up for all the terrible things he did, but it's just it's such a raw moment for the character that I just absolutely loved.
And it's all encompassed into a single panel of just an eye filled with all of the rage and regret.
Oh, also he destroyed his training room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything he's been working for never mattered. Like,
is a crater of fire. And in all honesty, to me, another thing that's a really important moment is that one of Todoroki's sisters is just like, yeah, he's been like that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
assume that they're kind of like this.
That's so telling.
Yeah, you just gotta let him burn it out. You're not gonna solve it by talking to him. I know Endeavor well enough. Like, sometimes you just let people fume. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Todoroki just has to hear from his siblings of like, yeah, he's been like that. There's not much you can say to him, as Todoroki just kind of slides open the door to the training room, peeks in, sees Endeavor sitting there in the middle of a pockmarked, smoke-filled room of just weight training and various exercise equipment torn apart, half melted. It's a scene out of hell.
Yeah.
Basically.
Work with when you got fire powers, right?
I mean, fair.
But hey, we had a situation with the League of Villains and Midoriya didn't break an arm.
Yeah.
Not for lack of trying.
Not for lack of trying.
He purposely removed himself from the plan to rescue Bakugo while that fight was going on.
Yeah, we did skip over that really good moment.
It is a really quick moment to go through, in all fairness, but
yeah,
it is. But I love this scene so much because it just fully encapsulates Deku's growth, not as a person, but as a tactician, because he understands that, okay, we have to A, avoid fighting, B, save Bakugo, C, save Bakugo's ego. And taking all those things into account, he's like, all right, Ida, you're going to use your speed powers. I'm going to use my quirk. Todoroki's going to build a ramp for us. We are going to shoot up. And Kirishima, I've known Bakugo for literal years. For like a decade and a half, he and I have been close friends. We've spent days of our lives together. We are as close can be. You have a better connection with him than I do.
If I reach my hand out to him, he will slap it away. You have to be the one to reach out to him.
So you are going to tell him to come on. He will react to you because you are a friend. You are an equal to him. And Kirishima throws out his hand, screams, come on. And Bakugo launches himself into the air, grabs Kirishima's hand, and immediately settles into being Bakugo as he's like, you idiots. What do you think you're doing?
I do very strongly get the impression that Bakugo recognized that, because like Deku is in the people pile that is flying through the air to spirit Bakugo out of the situation so All Might can fight at full power. because that's the reason they needed to do that. And I do get the impression from the look on Bakugo's face, because like he has a like sort of a you clever bastard look on his face, that like the lot of you did this on purpose to get me to agree to this, didn't you? I'm not going to say out loud that I respect that because I'm mad, but
the Sarkis peak Bakugo.
The way they were setting up that plan, too, they did, like, the Ocean's 11, like, let's plan out what we're gonna do. And, like, you weren't really sure if this was the plan or if it was, like, in media res. So I was totally expecting them, like, see how the plan worked perfectly, and then in actuality, Bakugo's like, I'm not taking a hand from you, what is this nonsense? But yeah, and then All Might loses his powers and snuffs out the remaining flame of One for All.
The last of the power in his heart that would not die before its mission on this earth was done. God, it chokes me up every time I see it, because it is All Might in his skeletal form, buck-ass naked.
Well, it's not even the skeletal form. It's a human-looking All Might, because he's not like he has like muscle tone to him. Like that's the Toshinori before he became All Might, holding on to the last of this flame as it's threatening to flicker out.
Mm-hmm. He crouches over the flame of All for One, or of One for All.
One for All. He's also crouching over All for One. I can see why.
That's also true. Look, I get why.
I understand the poetic parallels of these power names, but fuck you, Horikoshi.
I understand the metaphor of All for One being greedy and One for All being meant for all people, but it's still kind of annoying at times.
I just love the image of All Might crouching over that flame, huddling over it in the blowing winter storm, sheltering it long enough to do its duty and smash evil into the fucking pavement.
Yep. And in the aftermath of all this, we get a lot of different people's reactions. There is sort of a interesting moment where like some of the like government ministers and police are like, well, I guess we could call this a draw, right? We lost All Might. How can you ever call this a draw?
My favorite is UA is having a teachers meeting, and they're getting calls in like, well, obviously, since All Might is in his skeletal form, he can't be a teacher anymore. And I'm just like, no, that would give him plenty of time to teach. What? People typically teach once they retire. That's like saying former athletes never become coaches. Like,
the superpowered society only cares about quirks. He doesn't have his quirk anymore.
Yeah,
and they also don't care about teachers, so it's great.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, it was just, that was a one-off comment that was fortunately immediately squashed, because it doesn't make any logical sense. Both All Might and Deku, both originally quirkless individuals, are the underdogs of, trying to recognize actual heroism for
independent of quirks.
Yes. So, but I mean, to Matt's point, also, it just does not make sense why all of a sudden just losing your power, your quirk, would make you all of a sudden no longer qualified to be an educator and or mentor to students.
I'm going to be honest. The manga does not treat the public's concerns with much sincerity. They generally, if the public is reacting to something, they are saying they are overreacting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the public doesn't know anything. The public are stupid.
Fully disclose my bias right here. I spent the better part of a decade as a reporter for a local news channel. The way that this will just casually say the media is overblowing things. Oh, the public opinion is shot through with like overblown concerns and we shouldn't worry about it. I was like, like, yeah, you are framing the reporters as bad guys here, but like, also, what the fuck actually have you been doing, UA?
Yeah, like, this teachers meeting, they are very much like, we need to take responsibility, but also the criticisms against us aren't
So how about you actually do that? Okay, what's a concrete thing you have to protect your students? Well, we've increased surveillance. We've increased the security detail that we have at our facility. Okay, you're just saying things that anybody would say. What is a concrete thing that you are doing right now? Why should we trust you with our children and the next generation of heroes?
Yes, it was very much a hedging non-answer that you would expect from authorities.
I'm just saying, if I was Aizawa, my response was, well, random person in the crowd, I'm just going to say, UA is a very elite academy, so we actually would never accept your children.
Just personal ad hominem attacks.
I think that's what Flag King expected Aizawa to say.
Well, I mean, it's the fact that they say that Aizawa does not like the media. What he really means is he does not like that one reporter.
That guy in particular.
Uses his quirk on him, he freezes in place. No further questions?
Look, I agree. That guy was overdoing it, but at the same time, I would be throwing stones in my glass house if I said, the press corps is right to question you right now, UA. You better give us some fucking answers. You are harboring the next generation, not just of heroes, but of everybody in this superpowered society.
Yeah, full stop. A school had a school-sanctioned trip where 23 of their students were horribly injured, and presumably one of the teachers was presumed dead at the time of the press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was kidnapped.
And their response to, this seems like the worst-case scenario, Aizawa going like, well, no, the worst-case scenario would have been they all died. And I'm like, well, true!
It is.
You don't say that!
But I mean, it's true. That was immediately my response. I'm like, we could have everyone die. It would be...
No, because ideally, children dying on your field trip should be such a non-issue. You shouldn't even plan for that.
I know, but he was just pointing out a technicality. That is not the worst outcome.
Aizawa, in the most technical sense, you are right. But in any reasonable measure...
It's the best kind of correct.
That's not the answer that we're looking for.
So in any way, UA is getting a lot of bad press that I think the four of us agree they deserve.
No, they absolutely deserve. I mean, like, that's sort of the thing. This is a problem with the superpowered society, that they're a skewed sense of priorities.
But anyway, their plan to make everything right is they had been talking about enforcing dormitories on the students for a while. Why not go ahead with it? We're just going to individually go to everybody's house and ask if they're okay with moving on to campus.
Yes, that is very standard, I would say, with circumstances such as these when you participate in extracurricular in which there is a heightened amount of training and or dedicated exercise involved.
Yeah.
They do it with idols all the time, where they will individually meet with parents and say, is it all right if your child...
It is very telling that your go-to example was idols and not
anything
sports.
That's more appropriate. Yeah, no. I mean, again, skewed incentive.
That has been my exposure. Okay.
But no, I think it's also a very apt comparison. Now, I think that's a really apt comparison, and that's a problem.
But anyway, Aizawa and All Might end up going door to door in their suits, and
really slick. I'm just saying, if I saw individuals who I knew were superheroes show up in suits, I'd be terrified. Like, what the hell are you guys doing?
I thought I was watching a buddy cop movie for a second, because that's the look they've got going.
It's also kind of the attitude that they have with each other to some extent.
I think what is happening is All Might and Aizawa are just doing class 1A.
Yeah, they
split
say
up because there's so many students in this facility. I mean,
All
A and B is 60, and
hey,
they're talking about getting it done in like one day.
Well, Jay, you're forgetting Class 1B has a much lighter caseload because 23 of them are in the hospital.
Yes, I know.
Well, also the reason All Might wanted them to separate was because he wanted to specifically deal with the Midoriya household himself.
In fact, I think that was the last one. So
it was the last one.
Head home early. Because Aizawa was just like, well, we're going to get drinks after this, and All Might just has to be like, dude, I do not have a liver. I haven't had a liver for 6 years. Like, this is not a thing.
He doesn't have a lot of, like, organs. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have, like, all of his intestines and
he's
some other
half
stuff,
a lung. We talked about it. It does not make sense, the amount of organs he is missing, but whatever. Someone has an internal combustion engine in their leg. Like, that's...
Pick your battles.
I was just like the audacity. I know he was trying to, you know, just shoot the and be nice, but I'm just like, dude, are you serious?
It is also Aizawa, to be fair.
But anyway, the big thing is, surprisingly, it seems every single person is super on board with them going to the dormitories up until Midoriya's household. Like, they are pretty much every door is just like, yeah, no, obviously we're okay with this.
Fuck,
oh, cool.
This is the most hilarious.
we get a very telling look into his home life.
This is just as dysfunctional as I thought it would be.
All Might being the good caretaker he is, being like, this he appears to be being abused at home. This is a weird family. Well, probably doing him a favor taking him out of this environment.
It's notable that his mom did nothing but slap him the entire time.
They are a strange family. But everyone has been gung-ho on this. Like,
the thing about it is that because the families of the students are closer, they have more information than the general public, and they're taking the perspective of, and like, whether or not that this is a smart parenting decision, mileage may vary, I guess, but like their perspective is, our kids have been your students. We know that you guys have been, you know, saving them, so you know, we will accept, you know, you being around them more, whereas the public view is more of a, you let it happen at all, therefore you can't be trusted.
I'm sure they understand the faculty as individuals more so than the general public, which just sees it as an institution. And they're like, I trust you. I know who you are. You know, my kid talks about you, and they have so many comments.
And that's actually kind of, I feel, the reason why Mrs. Midoriya is the one who has the opposite reaction, because in a lot of ways, what's been happening to Deku is kind of a betrayal of the trust that she would have had going in a lot of ways.
Deku notoriously tells her almost nothing.
In other words, make sure you talk to your parents, or else they will freak out.
Well, at least your mom, apparently.
There's a thing that mentions that his dad like works overseas or something.
The bonus chapter just like 3 chapters ago was his mom, and it said his father works overseas. Except in this chapter, it seems to imply he's dead. Like,
yeah, they're not very clear on it.
Same thing. He apparently never comes home and visits.
Works overseas.
Yes, he works on the farm.
It's in the voice of the author, though, so that's why I'm not sure what we're supposed to take away from it.
Like, that can't be a lie. Anyway, in case we've been beating around the bush, Mrs. Midoriya does not agree. She is, you are not taking my son. Frankly, if he is set on being a pro hero, he was happy just watching heroes up until this whole mess with UA happened. But like, if he just wants to be a pro hero, I'm gonna be honest, there are other schools. I'm just sitting there going like, Mrs. Midoriya, you are not wrong. UA's training regimen has not shown to me that they are any better than anyone else could do, considering the like special training over summer break was essentially self-study. I'm like, yeah, the school doesn't seem to be providing anything other than prestige. But conveniently, as I was thinking this, All Might was also just like, you're right, he's just following in my footsteps, but Midoriya loves me so much he would do anything. And Midoriya comes out, he's like, yeah, you're right. I don't have to go to UA, but I'm going to a different hero academy if I do, because I've got this note. And it's the kid thanking him. It's
affirmation that he is a hero.
Yeah. Indeed. Mrs. Midoriya is like, wait, a child punched you in the balls?
You didn't tell me about this.
That's literally the first sentence.
I am looking for grandchildren here. Well, thus brings us to the end of our reading. After All Might does the whole big kowtow apology thing to Mrs. Midoriya about how, yeah, no, you're right. We've done a terrible job of protecting your son. But he is my protege, and I believe that he can become the next great hero. while I would absolutely understand a decision otherwise, I beg you to give me one more chance. A scene so shocking, it literally makes her collapse to her knees.
So shocking that it makes the audience forget about the very next scene, which is Mrs. Midoriya having a mental conversation with either the ghost of her husband or is thinking about All Might. And the exact wording, I would need to see the original Japanese because the nuance there is lost on me.
One way or another.
Whose father does not matter is the only thing I've taken from this.
I personally don't know if he's supposed to be... Horikoshi has said he is just working overseas. I don't know if I believe that, but...
He was working overseas in America, where he learned all the techniques for his United States of Smash.
Anyway.
I believe that Midoriya has never even met his father, and therefore just believes his tale of he's in America. He is working abroad. We never hear of him sending any pictures or messages back home. But then even if he did, Midoriya would never, respond to them because he seems to ignore anyone who was actually related to him.
They're not All Might.
They aren't All Might.
That we know for sure yet.
Indeed. But it is, in fact, the time for the discussion part of the episode. And that brings us to the all-important question in a shonen like this. Favorite character and favorite fight. It has actually been long enough that I don't remember what my previous entries for favorite character.
All Might and Bakugo, probably.
Yep. Yeah, probably something like that. But I will say, actually, for this section, my favorite character was Kirishima.
Yes.
What I love about this was he had reached the point of culminating all the subtle background character building that had been happening with him, because not too much of a spotlight was ever shown on it, but he is constantly around Bakugo, talking to him, becoming friends with him. And then while it's not directly framed by the manga too much, it's obviously Deku noticed because he incorporates that into the plan. And it shows a lot about how even the background characters get a lot of thought in not really the background characters, the side characters get a lot of thought in this, not just the three main protag boys. And I appreciate that sort of thorough character writing and attention to all the various details. It adds a nice complexity and believability to the characters. And also, it has the awkward moment of Midoriya, childhood friend of Bakugo, saying, yeah, no, he'd never listen to me if I actually said something. You're his actual friend, Kirishima. You have to be the one to call out to him, so he'll be rescued.
It is concerning and also very accurate.
I'm like, Deku, you're learning? Maybe just take 2 steps further back and stop going like Kachan, we're best friends, because that's clearly not been the case.
That's not helping the situation any, is it?
Not really. As for favorite fight, it's hard not to say the main attraction of the All Might versus All for One fight. It was spectacular in the anime. It's spectacular in the manga. It's full of the big feels. And as I said earlier, I love how it feels like a sort of a natural culmination moment that had happened from a whole bunch of history that we don't actually see, but it feels real even without that direct information. And again, I really appreciate that. Jacob, how about you? Favorite character and favorite fight?
Favorite character is a toss-up between two, and it's really hard for me to say which one it is. It's either Bakugo or Aizawa. I mean, this section is peak Bakugo, and one of the things I really love about it is the fact that it shows that all of the subtext associated with Bakugo was there with intention. I love it when stories do that. But the thing is, man, Aizawa is just such a strong character in this section. He keeps having to make all of these really hard decisions. And, it's like there's not even a real hard judgment call over, how many he gets right, how many he gets wrong. But there's also the sense that he takes so much onto himself. And one of Bakugo's best moments is framed by Aizawa. It's self-evident to the audience, but like explaining it to the other characters and that actually being facilitating a cool moment for Bakugo. If I had to pick between the two, I think in this section I would say that Aizawa is my favorite, but overall, because Bakugo was such a fun antagonist up to this point, like of all the series that we've read so far, Bakugo is probably my favorite, but for this section specifically, it would be Aizawa, because he just really shined in this section.
Big agree. Aizawa Sensei's great.
As for favorite fight, honestly, I liked Kendo and Tetsu versus Mustard. That was a really good one. And I mean, like, obviously, All Might versus All for One is obviously a great fight. But in all honesty, I think I liked it better in animation. I think it played better like that.
And it's got that score in the.
It's got the amazing score. It's got the kinetic motion of it is great. Not to say that it's not good in the manga. I liked it a lot in the manga. It's just I it would be below that. And Deku's fight with Muscular was also pretty good for the reasons that were mentioned when we covered that. But in all honesty, I'm a big fan of Kendo. She's one of the side characters that I can't help but notice whenever she's around, and this was a great moment of Tetsu being Tetsu without Kirishima around, which, again, like there's this whole like narrative beat of Deku separating his identity from All Might. So that Tetsu gets a moment like that too is kind of neat. So I would say that was probably the fight that I enjoyed the most in this reading, because it was bolstering up characters that don't get as much spotlight as opposed to, making the mains look even better.
Matt, favorite character and favorite fight?
I mean, I gotta rep my boy Ayama. Like, he didn't do much, but he fought against his fear. He shot his naval laser. He smacked Compress in the face.
He did a very critical attack at a very important moment.
Yeah. Made good decisions.
He's done nothing wrong. He's cool. Again, I think most of my favorite characters otherwise didn't do anything in these arcs. Pretty much.
Yeah, this was a much more focused arc in terms of character action, not as much of the ensemble cast happening in this one.
It was Deku and Bakugo, basically. Shoji actually got lifted up, but that's because multi-arm can only do so much. But favorite fight?
He was literally carrying Deku on his back for the entire first part of this arc.
Yeah. Some could argue he didn't need to be doing that. And in fact, that's really just Deku being super main character, but whatever. I guess if I had to pick a fight, the All Might versus All for One is just really it's like a good spectacle. Like, it's fun to read. It was a lot of cool action scenes. I'm trying to think if there's a fight I liked better on like a structural level, but I can't really think of one. There wasn't a lot of tactics in this arc, which fair. My boy Deku's fight was punch, oh no, now you're not getting away, punch harder. And I'm like, okay, buddy. Yeah, I know you're going through an inner battle, but like,
yeah, that was entirely about the inner battle. That's that's part of the reason why Kendo and Tetsu versus Mustard was higher in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot Mustard's fight where my boy just takes out a gun. Yeah, that's pretty good too.
Yeah. I did like the bits in the All Might and All for One fight where All Might basically had to fall back on Deku's own tactics when he didn't know how to use the quirk. That still was a lot of just powerful guys smacking each other.
I mean, in all fairness, I think this is the same criticism I've had of My Hero each time we've read it. So I think I'm just coming to the realization this is what Hiroaka does. And that's fair. Clearly it's doing well. I'm not going to say it needs to do anything differently. It's hundreds of chapters. It's fine. So I'm just realizing it's not made for me.
Yeah, which, fair. Not everything is. Not everything needs to be.
But everything should is really where I'm coming from.
And Jay, favorite character, favorite fight?
So this was very difficult, and I hope I'm remembering this correctly. Favorite character, I would have to say, well, I'm torn because obviously it's my rage puppy, Bakugo.
Sorry, Jay, I'll just correct you right now. You were mispronouncing that. His name's Ayama.
No. I gave him kudos in my comments. I appreciate him because I understand how he feels. But no. I still think he is a weak character. But favorite character, for obvious reasons. Favorite fight, I'd have to give it, again, it's already been said multiple times now, All for One. Mm-hmm. And All Might. But I would have to say not exactly a fight, but a good tussle. Bakugo versus Shigaraki. That was comedy. And I enjoyed it. And I love the surprise on everyone's face because no one listens to what he wants.
Actually, if we're including tussles, can I change my answer? I want to do Koda punching Deku in the balls. That's my favorite fight.
Yes. 2 panels of marvelous combat.
I'm just saying, for all you feet scalers out there, you know, he did one shot the holder of One for All.
Yeah.
Top tier.
Technically true.
When he grows up, he's going to hold that over everyone's head. Hey, punch that guy in the balls.
I defeated him in one attack.
And Midoriya in the future says, "But like, could you not bring that up, please, every time?"
Oh, I made T-shirts. It's okay.
All right. So speaking of Deku, actually, I want to talk a little bit about his arms.
Yeah, Deku.
Are we surprised or are we just disappointed?
Deku kind of went through a bit of a character regression in this arc. He learned a lesson at the very end, which is good, but like he had character progression in like the wrong way. He was like, no, a hero stays to fight even if they're going to die. And I'm like, but that's not quite what you're doing, buddy. There's a nuance there you seem to be missing. And when like he saw All Might's fight, he seems to realize, oh wait, maybe just being a hindrance to all my friends is not the best way of moving forward.
Well, that's actually the take that I had on it, and the thing I wanted to point out about this. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, this is the last full arc I've seen. I've seen the next bit where they're doing a test to get provincial licenses, I believe is what happens next. I've seen like about 60% of that arc in the anime, and that's where I trailed off on it. So I haven't seen a Deku in a crisis situation again. But the big thing for me when it comes to this arc is actually we saw Deku tried to just run and that didn't work. Not necessarily that I agree with this, but there is an argument to be made. He had to go that far in that moment. Like that time that he screwed his arms up was arguably justifiable. This is the first time where he's done that, and it has caused massive problems for him because since he was in that state, he could have been able to save Bakugo. He was in position to save Bakugo, but couldn't. And this is the first time where he's been in a situation like that, where him doing that to himself has had serious ramifications. Sort of the perspective I'm taking is if he does this sort of thing again, then I'd call that a serious character regression. I would question the, it's like, maybe there's some context where that could make narrative sense, but like this should be a sea change for him because, and I think the fact that, as much as Ida had to hold him back, they didn't get in the way this time with the All for One fight. They specifically did a plan to get all of the people out of the way that they could. Like that was the entire point and goal of the strategy that Deku came up with. Again, I haven't seen him yet in another crisis situation. So I would call foul if he pulls this again the next time something serious happens. But I think that I think that the fact that he couldn't reach out with his shattered arms to catch Bakugo in the forest should be a big character moment for him.
It would be very remiss to not have more come out of that, especially because of, we get the panel immediately afterwards of Deku, like, head down, exhausted, screaming at just the abject failure of what happened. If that doesn't have a wider, broader impact, it would be
that's a problem.
A pretty big mistake. Yeah, I am interested to see how this progresses in terms of thinking just more in terms of the power system, because I have seen a bit more of the anime as well, and I do know how Deku starts to work around this. I won't spoil nothing for the other hosts, but it almost feels like it could be him doing the same thing, but just putting a different skin on it. But that still remains yet to be seen, and I am very interested to see how that progresses going forward.
Not to spoil exactly what he does, but I actually think what he does end up doing synergizes with a moment near the end of our reading where Deku, when his mother doesn't want to send him back to UA, he's willing to accept that because he holds up the letter that Kota had sent him. This is something I did, and I wanted to go to UA just because that's where All Might went, but I've at this point proven I can be a hero unto myself. And him creating something like him being less so an All Might shadow and more his own person. He's less like I feel like, moving forward, he should be less likely to do that again.
He can make his own mistakes and selfish decisions.
His own unique mistakes that harm him long term.
As usual, Jake and I took up a lot of the air in the room. Matt, Jay, any thoughts?
Well, I haven't seen the anime, so I don't know what you guys were talking about near the end there.
Yeah, nothing, I guess, to say.
I don't know. Deku's probably going to do what Deku does, because as we've learned, apparently the way you train quirks is just use them at 100% for 3 days in a row. So, yeah, I don't know. He'll get stronger by breaking his arms more and more. And then when he breaks his arms the third and final time, it will unlock his arm Bankai. And then he'll get like 4 arms or something. I don't know. Or maybe he'll become Spider-Man. I honestly don't know.
That actually brings us to the ultimate question. Would you continue reading? I absolutely will. Mostly because I want to keep going beyond the part where I have seen in the anime, and I know I'm not going to be able to get my ass to sit down and actually watch it. So having any excuse to read the manga further, I will happily take.
Yeah, ditto from... I've been, at my big old list, I've been plinking away one chapter at a time with a random series and trying to keep up with everything, but Hirawaka is definitely a big love of mine.
Always a really strong recommendation of a series when you're like, I can't be bothered to watch it, but...
Look, it specifically comes down to... if you have my specific set of mental illnesses, you'll understand why I like this show a lot, but I can't watch the anime. Anyway. Anyhow. Matt, Jay, how about you guys?
I mean, I'll continue reading just because the characters intrigue me and I have motivation to, catch up, because as I started this episode, I have promised to watch the anime. And I will once again promise I will eventually get around to watching the anime.
You know, at some point you can just admit you've broken the promise. Like, that's...
No, it's still on my list. I will get there eventually.
I guess if you never admit defeat, you're technically not a liar, I suppose.
But I'm not lying. It is on my list. That if I ever have time, I will watch it.
Yeah, and then you'll get to actually hear Bakugo screaming.
Oh, I've heard him screaming. Music.
Ew.
Shut up.
And you, Matt?
I want to say yes, because I like the side characters, but I don't know. These are 2 arcs in a row where it seemed like the cast kept getting whittled down more and more, so it's really just the main team. And I'm kind of worried this is going to start being more and more like Naruto, where it's just like, hey, here's some cool side characters. They're never going to do anything again after this arc. I'm like, cool. The people I care about are kind of being left in the dust, and I'm just like, that's fine. I don't really have any big problem with it, is the problem. Like, normally when I say I don't want to continue reading this, I have, like, a legitimate, like, there's something wrong with it. This is just,
Not your cup of tea.
The fights are not my deal, and the characters I actually connected with are clearly not the series' priority. So it just seems like the series is not reaching out to me. So I don't know. I'll keep reading it. I don't have,
and that's fine.
no, it's not. Everything needs to be exactly tailored to my interest. What are you not grasping?
I feel like that's a similar reaction that I had to Jujutsu Kaisen. It's like nothing wrong with it, but probably not.
Jujutsu Kaisen, your problem was you didn't connect to any of the characters.
Yeah.
My problem is I connected to characters that clearly the story doesn't care about.
That the story is sidelining. But yeah, no, I mean similar sentiment though.
And I feel like that is kind of a dilemma that every series kind of runs the risk of, because obviously it's an actualization of the mangaka's vision, and whatever energy, whatever vibes they want to put into their main characters, it just does not vibe with everyone, and that's fine.
Yeah. My hero has strong seat of the pants writing style energy, and I find I just naturally don't vibe with that. So,
yeah. Meanwhile, I rather embarrassingly understand this. Look, if Horikoshi can do it, so can I. Damn it!
Horikoshi can draw hands, Sam.
You're right.
Very well.
You're right.
Have you seen them?
His power is ultimately beyond me, but a man can dream. And that brings us to the end of the show. So thank you everybody once again for listening to the Over Manga Cast. Remember to follow us on all of your social medias, where we are at Over Manga Cast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I keep doing this bit of I think there's another one, but I know there isn't.
Well, we have a YouTube too, which if you want, the episodes go live on that about a week after, because generating them takes time. It is a great place if you want to go for individual episode discussion. Just reach out to us in the comments there. But if you want a more general sense, just drop us a review on your podcatcher of choice. iTunes is preferred just because iTunes is preferred by everyone. I don't make the rules. That's just apparently how it works. If you don't believe in reviewing things, you can send us an email at overmangacast@gmail.com. And as always, if you have a series you'd like us to read, send us out. We've done some recommendations in the past. We'll probably do some in the future.
Indeed. And tune in next week, where we are going to be reading Golden Kamui. Kamui?
Kamui? It's one of them. It's a loan word.
Indeed. Well, we'll figure out how to pronounce it by next week. But we're reading chapters 1 through 21. I've already started plinking away at this, and I'll get this joke out of the way now. Why does the MC look like the first 3 JoJo's rolled into one?
Hey.
That's not a complaint. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a thing. Anyway, we'll catch y'all next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so Sam, we gotta find if we can find one of your ex-Russian assassin girlfriends, because we gotta find some skin to flay to make a treasure map.
Wait.
What?